Welcome back to the channel. This is Trendy Storm and you are watching first part of What If Naruto travel back in time and make Tsunade his lover. If you enjoy this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel, and for more exclusive and spicy content, follow me on Patreon. Link is in the description below. And now, wasting no more time, let's start the story.
Battlefield Scars, Dyoji Ninkai Taisen, the conclusion of the Fourth Shinobi World War. A lone man stands in the center of this battlefield off the southern coast of Fire Country. The man in question is 5 feet 8 inches with a slender, fit frame, and his posture begs for danger. His eyes, which were once dark blue, are now purple with 3 concentric rings around the black pupil and 3 tome-like markings on the first 2 rings, the Rinnegan. He also has 3 whisker-like marks on each cheek. He has spiky, sun-kissed blonde hair. He is dressed in a tattered and worn dark orange tracksuit with black lines down his pant legs and along the shoulders, zipper, and bottom of his jacket. He has black shinobi sandals on his feet, mesh armor underneath his jacket, and a leaf-shaped headband around his forehead. Son of the 4th Hokage, Yondaime Hokage, Minato Namikaze and the Red Death, Aka no Shi, Kushina Uzumaki. This young man is Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, Chunin of the village hidden in the leaves, Jinchuriki of the 9-tailed demon fox, Kyuubi no Yoko, hero of the leaf, and most recently, the sole survivor of the 4th Shinobi War. He can't help but shake his head at the senseless deaths as he surveys the bodies of his allies strewn about. Everything was going great, so it was shocking to learn that the man going by Madara Uchiha was actually Obito Uchiha, his father's misbehaving pupil. Although the army of dead shinobi and kunoichi was strange and challenging to control, they were able to seal the majority of them away and even stop Edo Tensei, who was, predictably, Kabuto, the caster of the impure world reincarnation. When the reincarnation technique ended and the real Madara Uchiha prevented himself from being sent back to his death, things had just begun to go south. Then, like his rival the first Hokage, Shodai Hokage, the man who had once been regarded as a god level being proceeded to slaughter the 5 Kage, Gokage. Leaving them all on the verge of death, he then fought alongside Obito against Naruto and Killer Bee. The only other Jinchuriki who had not yet had his tailed beast removed from him. Killer Bee was in possession of the 8-tailed ox octopus, Hachibi Ushi Oni. They were soon overpowered, though, and the 2-tailed beasts were taken from them to finish the 10 tails, Jubi. The third and final Uchiha arrived with his team Hawk and Orochimaru, while the other 2 Uchiha had been occupied with the final 2 Jinchuriki. After the cage was healed by the errant snake Sanin, 4 new undead appeared. Shocking everyone, these 4 were Minato Namikaze, Hashirama Senju, Tobirama Senju, Hiruzen Sarutobi, and the first 4 Hokage Orochimaru, Team Hawk. The 4 reincarnated Hokages, and the 5 living cages all went off to aid Naruto and Bee. In summary, the battle was intense and quick. Sakura, a teammate, saved Naruto, who was on the verge of death, and his father then implanted his half of the 9 tails, Kurama, into him. Following that, Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura regrouped as Team 7 to battle the 2 Uchiha. The battle proceeded smoothly, with Naruto persuading Obito to turn against Madara. However, the ancient Uchiha used his Rinnegan to resurrect himself. Madara sealed the 10 tails into himself after he regained consciousness, turning him into Jinchuriki and making the fight more difficult. Hagoromo Otsutsuki, the sage of 6 paths, Rakudo Sennin, the father of all shinobi and the first man to possess the Rinnegan, paid visits to both Naruto and Sasuke. The elderly wise man told them that they were the present-day incarnations of his 2 sons, Indra and Asura, who founded the Senju and Uchiha clans. He then gave each of them a gift. Sasuke received a true Rinnegan eye, also known as the Rinne Sharingan, with his visual prowess and the mark of the moon on his left hand, while Naruto received his powerful chakra and the mark of the sun on his right hand. Naruto also possessed an additional gift, which was a small portion of each tailed beast's chakra. Following their departure from the sage, the 2 young men engaged Madara in combat on an even playing field. They even managed to weaken him to the point where the 10 tails took control of his body and transformed him into a woman with delicate facial features and incredibly long, sweeping white hair that reached the ground. Notable features included a third eye with vertically parted eyelids in the middle of her forehead, 2 brown horns protruding from her head, and the Byakugan. She wore a dark lipstick on her lips and a dark nail polish on her long fingernails, and her eyebrows were cropped very short, which is a sign of nobility. She wore the transitional high-collared Haim kimono, which had elaborate gold, purple, and tomo lines running down the gown's edges and center. The woman, who turned out to be the mother of all chakra and the sage Kagaya Otsutsuki, also had pale skin. After that, the fight became so intense that Obito gave his life to save Naruto, leaving Kakashi with both of his Sharingan eyes for a brief period of time. After Sakura struck her from above, Naruto and Sasuke were ultimately able to use their marks to seal her away. It appeared to be over, though, as the spirits of the sage and every deceased cage teleported them back from Kaguya's dimension. It didn't last long, though, as Sasuke betrayed them once more and tried to capture the tailed beast. Sakura, Kakashi, and Naruto attempted to stop him, but Sasuke killed the first two and started fighting with Naruto. Naruto pulled his punches because he still believed that his old friend could be saved, even though the two young men, who had grown to be like gods themselves, fought tooth and nail. When Sasuke killed the 5 Kage, particularly the 5th Hokage Tsunade Senju and the 5th Kage Gaara Sabaku, two of the blonde's most valued individuals, that illusion was destroyed. The gloves were then removed, and the sage started fighting fiercely. He even transformed into his Ashura avatar and engaged Sasuke's Susanoo avatar in a head-to-head battle. The final Uchiha was killed by Naruto using his original technique, Rasen Shuriken, but as he lay dying, Sasuke grinned and congratulated his brother in all but blood before shocking him by telling him to take his eyes and use them to lead the world into a peaceful future. As a result, Naruto now has the Rinnegan. Naruto, I'm so sorry that you've had to go through all of this. I can't help but to put most of the blame on myself. If only I'd have been faster that night, then there would have been no need to seal Kurama inside you. You never would have had to go through the hardships you have if not for me, son. The younger blonde says with a sorrowful shake of his head. It's not your fault too, San. You did what you could have avoided creating monsters like Madara. You. Hagoromo has a brilliant idea, but Minato and the other Kage can only nod sorrowfully in response to his son's words. What if you could change that? What if you could go back in time to a point before the Akatsuki, before even the Second Shinobi War? Would you take that chance to change events? Everyone looks at him with disbelief, but Naruto needs to reflect on it for a moment before he responds, yes. If it would mean I could save certain people from having to ever deal with the pain and suffering brought on by the Second and Third Wars, then I'd do it. The elderly sage chuckles at this. Good, then I will give you the chance. There is a technique that I know which can be used to send you back in time. However, the power required for it is enormous, and it is why I myself never used it to go back and stop my mother from eating the chakra fruit. Ah, an inquisitive mind. You remind me of my son Asura, always asking questions. The answer is that with the 4 Hokage, as well as my sons and daughters the tailed beasts, we will have enough chakra required for this technique. However, all of you will have to help with the hand signs as there are thousands. Everyone nods in agreement, including all 9 of the tailed beasts, who are more than happy to do their father a favor. The ghost of the 3rd Kage is a brilliant man. Hagoromo then turns to Naruto and says, say your goodbyes, because once you have there are some things you and I need to go over about the technique. The blonde nods his head and turns to face the 4 Hokages, saying to Hashirama first, Lord first, I just want to say that it's been an honor to meet you. I always heard stories about how strong you were but thought they weren't real, but after watching you in action I have to say you're probably the most awesome Hokage ever. This makes the brown-haired man rub the back of his head with a huge smile on his tanned face. Well, thanks Naruto-san. I want to say good luck to you in the past. I'm sure that wherever you're going, I'll be sure to be dead, so I'll be sure to watch how you change the world. The white-haired Senju brother simply crosses his arms with a slight smirk on his face and says, thank you Uzumaki-san. Ordinarily I would reprimand you for wearing orange, but you've shown me that a ninja is more than stealth and doing what is necessary. You've shown me that being a ninja means remaining true to yourself, so never lose that spirit. I'll be watching you from the other side with my brother. The blonde shakes his hand and then turns to the second, saying, Lord Second, you're every bit the serious and pragmatic man that Iruka-sensei always made you out to be in his lessons, but you're also pretty strong and cool in your own right. The next person to arrive almost makes the blonde teenager weep, but he smiles broadly. Gigi, from you I learned the will of fire, but more importantly I learned what it's like to have a grandfather. You were always there for me when I needed you, and I know that you did your best to give me a normal life, and for that I'll always be grateful. I hope that whenever I'm going back to that we can have just as close a relationship, maybe even a father, son or big brother, little brother one. I was so sad when you died, old man, but I realized that you'd want me to move forward and carry on your will of fire, and so I've tried to. I hope you're proud of me. As he says, Naruto-kun, you have made this old man very proud. I've watched you from the pure world and have seen the man you've grown into and couldn't be any prouder. If you were my actual grandson, you more than anyone embody the will of fire and have become a splendid shinobi. I'm sure that whatever time period you land in that you will achieve your dream and become Hokage. Always stay strong, Naruto. He pats his shoulder before turning to face his 2 teachers and predecessors, leaving Naruto alone with his father for a private moment. Naruto, my son. The younger blonde looks up at him with a sad smile, I'm 17 today, Dad. The fourth Hokage simply smiles wider. 17, huh? Pretty much a grown man. What a man you've grown into. I'm proud of you, Naruto, and I'm sure if your mother were here, she'd probably be trying to chase all the girls from you. Ha ha ha. Naruto can't help but laugh at that and ask, you really think Ka-chan would be proud of me? Minato nod his head. I'm sure she would, and she'd be ecstatic that her Sochi was one of the most powerful shinobi to ever live. Never forget this one important thing, no matter where you go, Naruto, your mother and I love you. As the man pats his back, he bursts into tears and rushes into his father's arms, giving him a big hug. After a short while, they part ways. Naruto turns to the Sage of Six Paths and asks, alright, Sennin-Jiji, tell me all about this jutsu. The elderly sage laughs at his eagerness but responds, well, first thing you need to know is that we're aiming to send you back to a few years after the first war. Secondly, you won't be going back as you are now, meaning not as a 17-year-old, or B, send your spirit and chakra into the body of a newborn. The young sage's jaw drops as he says, what? I can't go back as a baby. I'd have to completely start from scratch with all my techniques and everything. I'd take de-aging over that. Speaking of which, how much would I de-age? Hagoromo nods his head. As far as de-aging goes, you would go back to the form of yourself at about 4 years old. Also, you'll get to keep your gifts, meaning you will still retain the bloodlines given to you by the tailed beasts, as well as the Rinnegan and the Six Paths Sage mode. However, you want the Rinne Sharingan or the Six Paths mode right away. Those you will have to train to gain back, as will you have to train yourself in the lava, magnet, and boil releases, not to mention the elements that make them up. The brunette raises his arms. I guess that makes sense. Alright, I'm fine with training my skills back up. Heck, I can even take the time to properly learn Fuinjutsu, and then maybe I can find the second Hireishin and learn and improve it myself. Anything else I should know? The elderly monk nods his head. Yes, as a result of the Rinnegan you now have a major affinity to all 5 elements, and will gain the additional sub-elements of ice and wood, but again you will have to work for them. Also, your appearance will change slightly, mostly just your hair. You will gain the red hair of all Uzumaki. Oh, and your summoning contract to the toads will be void, so you'll have to find another animal to summon, perhaps even of a canine type. The mention of obtaining the wood release and Haku's ice release, his first true friend, makes Naruto's face light up a little. He even beams when he realizes that he will finally have his mother's gorgeous red hair. However, he frowns at losing the toads, utterly missing the clue as to which animal he should sign a contract with in its place. After a short while, the old sage takes a breath and says, okay, I understand. Well, let's get this show on the road. Six Paths Jiji. The tailed beasts focus their chakra, creating a massive flare of light, and he smiles and nods his head as he signals all the cage to begin. Their hand sings as he begins his hidden samsara technique. Space-time transportation. The elderly man intones after completing all the signs and gathering the appropriate amount of energy. After he says this, a rift in time and space appears in front of Naruto. The blonde gives his father and the other Hokages one last glance before he braces himself and leaps into the whirling tangle of lights. A moment later, the young half of Kurama follows him, and the rift closes. As the bodies of the 4 Hokages start to disintegrate, Minato turns to the ancient sage and asks, are you sure this will work? That Naruto will be able to change things? The original god of shinobi, Shinobi no Kami, gives the man a serious look and says, I have the utmost faith in him. After all, he is the current reincarnation of my son Asura. However, he won't be able to change everything. I have the utmost faith in him. After all, he is the current reincarnation of my son Asura, but he won't be able to change everything. The second and third wars will still happen, but their outcomes will be altered due to his presence. He will also be able to bridge the gaps between the nations over time and keep groups like Akatsuki from having to form at all. As he completes his disintegration and returns to the pure world with the spirits of all the other cage present, Minato nods his head after giving each of the 8-tailed beasts a final glance. Hagoromo smiles and says, you are all free, my children. Live your lives how you see fit from here on. Goodbye. He then disappears back into his own dimension, while the other tailed beasts all go their separate ways. Within the portal pane as he ages, all he can sense is the cracking and shrinking of his bones, and he is aware that he is becoming younger. Other than the tunnel's lights, all he sees are pictures of the elemental nation's past events played backwards. Kurama, what's going on? What are you doing in there? He asks himself in his dazed state as a surge of demonic chakra enters his system. Sorry about that, Kit, his partner and tenant respond from within his mindscape. That influx just now was my young half coming back and joining back with me. Good news is I'm whole again, and that means you'll have more power to use from me later on. Bad news is that your chakra reserves are going to be double what they originally were when you were 4, which means way more chakra control training. All he can do is sigh. Great, at least I might finally get my chakra control up to a good enough level to perform genjutsu and even medical ninjutsu. He realizes he's going to be dropped off at his destination as soon as he sees the portal open again after having that thought. Village of Hidden Leaf Ground 7 training 1 year after the First War, YAFW. All of the shinobi in the village become tense when they see the skies surrounding the village clouding over and turning dark because they realize this isn't a normal occurrence. All of the animals in the vicinity are scared away by a massive explosion that occurs in Training Ground 7 after a large flash of light and the opening of a rift in space. When the smoke clears after the explosion, the small body of a 4-year-old Naruto is visible in a crater where the rift has closed and vanished. His hair used to be blonde, but now it's blood red, still spiky, but much shorter than it was. Imagine his hair 2 years after the Fourth War. And his whisker marks have disappeared. His attire has also changed. He is now wearing tan shorts, white shinobi sandals on his feet, and a white t-shirt with the Uzumaki spiral on the front. A few minutes later, a group of shinobi from the village's elite unit, the Anbu, arrive at the training grounds around the crater. They are all dressed in white animal masks and are led by a 21-year-old man with tanned skin, spiky dark brown hair, a small goatee on his chin, and brown eyes. He is dressed in a green gauntlet that covers most of his right arm and an all-black jumpsuit with mesh segments covering the lower parts of his limbs. The kanji for Third Hokage is displayed on the back of his jumpsuit, and he also sports an armored hood with a bandana-like forehead protector over it that is fastened with 2 long straps. This man is Hiruzen Sarutobi, the new shinobi god and the 3rd Hokage of the Leaf. After quickly assessing the situation and determining that there is no threat, he gestures for his men to stand aside before entering the crater and approaching the child. After turning the boy over and examining him for any wounds, he discovers none, but he can tell that the child is experiencing chakra exhaustion. The Anbu wearing a cat mask advances. Lord Hokage, we should check the boy for traps. He could be a spy. The young man nods his head. No, that's not necessary. I've already checked him for any traps and found none. He has chakra exhaustion and needs to go to the hospital. Besides, based on his hair color and the clan crest on his shirt, I'd say he's an Uzumaki, and if that's true then he won't be harmed. We'll have to wait till he wakes up to find out how he got here. You're all dismissed. As Hiruzen himself body flickers to the hospital to have the boy treated, they all vanish via body flicker and return to their posts. When he gets there, he tells the doctors and nurses about the situation, and they take the redhead to receive the standard treatment for chakra exhaustion. He also gives the order to put the boy in a private room and to notify them as soon as he wakes up. After finishing that, he goes to the Senju compound to speak with Mito Uzumaki Senju, the clan's current head and matriarch. Compound Senju. A few minutes later, Sarutobi reaches the Senju compound a short while later. It is one of the village's 3 biggest compounds, only surpassed by the Hyuga clan and Uchiha compounds. The compound itself resembles a small village, with wooden walls that are reinforced with a variety of seals. There are numerous homes for the clan's members inside, and as he moves through the compound's streets, he sees that some of the houses are empty because the occupants perished in the First War, which ended just a year ago. He is also greeted by many of the clan's surviving members, to whom he simply nods and waves. He eventually arrives at the main house, the clan's head's residence. It is a 2-story traditional Japanese home with shoji doors, and above the front door is a massive Vajra, the Senju clan symbol. He knocks and waits for a response. A short while later, he looks down and sees a little 4-year-old girl answering the door, but it's not who he expected. The girl is fair-skinned, with large brown eyes, long blonde hair styled in twin short pigtails, and a hint of rosiness on her cheeks that comes with youth. This girl is Tsunade Senju, granddaughter of Mito and the late 1st Hokage Hashirama Senju, and second in line to the Senju clan after her own father. She is dressed in a cream-colored sundress. When the little blonde sees who is at the door, she beams and says, Ba-chan is in the sitting room. Come on, I'll show you where. Saru Oji. Hiruzen smiles down at the young girl and asks, hello Tsunade-chan, is your grandmother home by any chance? She tries to pull him along by grabbing his hand, but all he can do is laugh at the young girl's excitement and follow her, making sure to kick off his sandals in the entryway first. Tsunade is talking endlessly about her training and how the academy is going since she only joined this year as they make their way to the sitting room. The Hokage is a little taken aback when she asks, say Saru Oji-san, why do you need to talk to Ba-chan? But he quickly corrects himself and responds, it's a personal matter Tsunade-chan, I'm sure Mito-sama will tell you about it much later on. The girl pouts, but it doesn't last long because they arrive at the sitting room, where she opens the door and declares, Ba-chan. Saru Oji is here to see you. A woman with long, bright red hair and large, pupilless eyes sits inside the room. She appears to be no older than 30, but she is slightly older than 50. The obi, which is tied around her waist, has the Uzushiogakure symbol on the back of her ornate, high-collared kimono. 3 clips in the front and hairpins in the buns are how her hair is styled. Mito Uzumaki Senju is a stunning woman and one of the strongest kunoichi to have ever lived. She also sports a dark red lipstick, a gem-like marking on her forehead, and tags with kanji written on them in her hair decals. Su-chan, how many times have I told you not to just barge in? Mito smiles at her granddaughter and her husband and brother-in-law's student. The girl frowns a little and says, "Sorry, Ba-chan." The woman nods her head and turns to face the Hokage, saying, "Saru-chan, how good to see you, though I'm surprised that you could take the time away from your duties to visit. Is this a social call or part of your official duties as Sandaime Hokage?" The 21-year-old sighs at her, still referring to him as Saru-chan, but he shakes his head and says, "Actually, it's a little of both. Mito-sama, I need to have a private word with you about an incident that happened about an hour ago." When Sarutobi enters the room and shuts the door, the room briefly glows blue before stopping because Mito has just activated a privacy seal. The red-haired woman nods her head and turns to Tsunade, saying, "Su-chan, you run along now, maybe go and play with some of the other children." The little blonde nods her head and leaves. He sits on a mat next to her and starts off. "Now, as you know, 1 hour ago the skies over the village suddenly clouded over and darkened." She smiles as he continues, "Well, I knew it wasn't a natural occurrence and at first feared maybe Cloud Village was launching an attack with their storm release users. That turned out not to be the case. There was suddenly an explosion in the 7th training grounds and so I and a group of Anbu went to check out the scene. What we found was not what we expected at all." Mito responds by asking, "What did you find then?" The younger man breathes a sigh of relief. "We found a crater, obviously created by the explosion. However, inside the crater wasn't an enemy nin, but a child." This causes the redhead to widen her eyes a bit. "A child? How old?" The man responds, "Yes, a child, about the same age as Tsunade-chan, I would guess. So about 4 years old." However, that's not the oddest thing. The oddest thing is that despite being in the middle of a huge explosion, he had no injuries at all. The only thing that looked wrong with him was chakra exhaustion. So after checking him over for any traps of any kind and finding nothing, I ordered the Anbu back to their positions and took him to the hospital where he is being treated now. Hiruzen laughs at this and rubs the back of his head nervously. "Well, you see, what I left out was that the boy has blood red hair, and was wearing a shirt with the Uzumaki symbol on the front of it. Going off those things, I deduced that he's possibly a member of the Uzumaki clan, and therefore one of your kinsmen." She sighs and chooses to chastise him, saying, "But just because the boy was wearing my clan baka." The 21-year-old nods in agreement, saying, "True, but there's an easy way to find out if he is in fact an Uzumaki. First is to wait till he awakes and ask him, and second is to see just how large his chakra pool is when it's fully restored." Mito nods in agreement, and the two start talking about other topics. However, when the topic of his romantic life comes up, he decides it's time to leave and returns to the front door. The door opens as soon as he puts on his sandals, and a man who is taller than him, 5 feet 10 inches with tan skin, straight dark brown hair, and brown Isa enters. This man is Itama Senju, the heir to the Senju clan, which was named for one of his father's brothers who perished in the clan wars, the son of Mito and Hashirama, and the father of Tsunade. When Itama sees him, he smiles and says, "Hiruzen, good to see you. Are you leaving?" Sarutobi smiles at his slightly older friend, and Itama laughs and pats him on the shoulder. "Yes, afraid so. I've been visiting with your mother, but now I have to get back to my arch-enemy paperwork." Itama says, "I don't envy you being Hokage, my friend. Well, see you around. Try to come back sometime and we'll spar." The younger man nods his head and smiles at his friend, and as the man removes his sandals and leaves the house, he nods his head. Leaf Medical Center. After 2 days, as Naruto starts to wake up, he moans. The first thing that greets him is the smell of bleach and disinfectant, and he immediately recognizes his location. "Great, I'm in the hospital, which is the one place I detest the most. I wonder how long I've been away." His thoughts are confirmed when he opens his eyes and sees the hospital's white ceiling. He raises his right arm to examine it and notices how tiny it is, indicating that the old sage's jutsu was effective. He looks at the nurse for a moment before responding, "I feel okay, I guess. How long have I been out, nurse-san?" The nurse laughs at this and says, "My name is Nanase, little one. You've been here 2 days recovering from chakra exhaustion. Now lay still while I check up on your condition." A few seconds later, a nurse enters to check his vitals and notices that he is awake. He nods his head while she checks his vitals, performs some hand signals, and assesses the health of his chakra pools. Her eyes enlarge, though, because he possesses more chakra than most Chunin. Well, everything seems to be good, and might I say you have some impressive chakra levels for a 4-year-old. He blushes a little at this. Thank you, so can I get out of here now? She asks, shaking her head. I'm afraid not, you'll have to stay here a while longer. We have to inform Hokage-sama that you've awakened, and I'm sure he'll have some questions for you, so until then just rest up and we'll bring you some breakfast. She then turns and leaves to tell the Chunin watching over his room to call the Hokage. She comes back after a short while with a tray of hospital breakfast, which he reluctantly consumes despite the awful taste. When Sarutobi enters while he is eating his breakfast, Naruto's eyes widen a little because he recognizes the man but didn't anticipate that he would return to his younger self. Well, young man, it's good to see you awake. You were in quite a state when we found you. The nurse tells me your chakra pools are fully restored and that you can leave here today after a few shots, he says, quickly masking his surprise as the third Hokage approaches and sits at his bedside. Even though he makes a face at the idea of shots, the redhead nods. Now I have a few questions for you. First off, can you tell me your name? Sarutobi asks after a moment of hesitation. The boy replies, my name is Naruto Uzumaki. Who are you, mister? The man laughs. My name is Hiruzen Sarutobi, and I'm the third Hokage. It's nice to meet you, Naruto-kun. Now can you tell me how you ended up here in the leaf? The redhead begins to panic inside, trying to think of a plausible backstory, but he receives a fantastic backstory and a sad expression. He begins, I'm not sure how I got here, Lord Hokage. All my life I've lived with my parents in the land of waves, Nami no Kuni, but recently they died, attacked by bandits, and I was orphaned. They always said we came from a proud lineage but never elaborated, though they did say that if I was ever in trouble I could go to the Hidden Leaf Village, and I planned to in a few years. But when I was going through some of my 2-chan's stuff I found this seal and it activated, and then after that it's a blank. Next thing I know I'm waking up here. I see. Well, Naruto-kun, it seems you may have stumbled on an experimental seal meant for teleportation. You're lucky that it didn't kill you and all you ended with chakra exhaustion. Now your parents were right when they said you come from a proud lineage. You are a member of the Uzumaki clan of the Land of Whirlpools. The Uzumaki clan is well known for their incredible pools of chakra, their longevity, and their skills in both Fuinjutsu and Kenjutsu. As he goes on, he notices that Naruto's eyes light up. Also, the Uzumaki clan is the cousin clan to one of the founding clans of the Leaf, the Senju. As a matter of fact, the current head of the Senju clan is a woman named Mito Uzumaki Senju, and I'm sure that she would love to take you in, being that you're clansman. She also has a granddaughter your age that I'm sure you'll get along with. Naruto nodded and smiled. Good, then after your shots I'll take you to meet with Mito-sama. The red-headed man became perplexed and asked, why do you call her Mito-sama? Aren't you the leader of the village? Naruto nods as he finishes his meal, and Sarutobi gets up and gestures for the doctor and nurse to come in and give him his shots and other things. Hiruzen laughs at this, saying, ha ha ha, yes I am, but Mito-sama is the widow of the first Hokage, and holds a high position within the village, so everyone gives her the proper respect and calls her Mito-sama, all except her immediate family, that is. In addition to administering his vaccinations, they draw blood for testing. After everything is finished, everyone leaves the room so he can change back into his clothes. Sarutobi then signs him out of the hospital and takes him to the Senju compound. Main house of Senju. They eventually arrive at the Senju compound after strolling through the village and continuing to converse. This is where I'm gonna be living, it's a mansion, is Naruto's initial reaction upon seeing it, but that's nothing compared to his reaction upon seeing the main house. You're not incorrect, but you should know that the first Hokage himself built this house using his bloodline, the wood release, Mokuton. In fact, he built this entire compound using his powers. Then Mito-sama went around and applied strengthening seals to each of the homes and the walls, making the wooden constructs as strong as steel. Sarutobi laughs at this. The young man knocks on the door, and the redhead can only nod. After a few moments, it is answered, but this time by Mito herself. Sarutobi bows to her and says, Mito-sama, it's good to see you again. I've got someone for you to meet. He then grabs Naruto's shoulder and gently pushes him forward, saying, Mito Uzumaki Senju, meet Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto Uzumaki, meet Mito Uzumaki Senju. Mito examines the 4-year-old critically and notes that he has many of the typical Uzumaki features, particularly the red hair, but it is when she uses her limited chakra sensing ability that she verifies that he is, in fact, an Uzumaki. Incredible, only 4 years old, and already has the reserves of a high Chunin. That makes me cry because I know without a doubt that this child belongs to my clan. It's nice to meet you, Naruto-kun. Welcome to your new home. I hope that you find it comfortable, she says with a sweet smile and a slight bending of her body to be at his level. Thank you, Mito-sama, It's nice to meet you too. I've never met any other member of my family before. The older redhead frowns a little, but her face softens quickly, and she uses her right hand to lift his face so that he's looking directly at her. None of that, Sama. Stuff out of you, little one. We are family, so therefore you may call me Mito Obasan. Now come inside so that you can meet the rest of the family. Saru-chan. Thank you for bringing him, and if you wouldn't mind filling out the paperwork to have him entered into the academy for me, that would be appreciated. What the? Sigh. I guess I have no choice but to comply. I swear I should have just let Danzo have the Hokage seat and let him deal with all the paperwork. On second thought, it's better that I'm Hokage and he's an Anbu captain. He'd have us still at war. He then shakes his head and vanishes in a leaf body flicker as she brings Naruto inside and closes the door before the Hokage can respond. Mito guides young Naruto inside the house to the family room, where her granddaughter, son, and daughter-in-law are seated. As they stroll together, she regales him with the history of the Senju and Uzumaki clans, including how her father's marriage to Hashirama helped to forge an alliance between the cousin clans and how they eventually fell in love. When they finally arrive at the family room, everyone is staring at the little redhead with curiosity. Amaya Senju, a woman with a buxom figure, fair skin, green eyes, and long blonde hair with two bangs that perfectly frame her face, is seated next to Itama and Tsunade. The three are all curious when Itama asks, "Ka-chan, who's the kid?" Mito beams and touches the child's arm. This Itama-chan is Naruto Uzumaki. He is 4 years old and an orphan, and as he is a member of my clan, I have volunteered to take him in and raise him. Naruto-kun, this is my immediate family. The man is my only son and next head of the Senju clan. Itama, the blonde-haired woman, is his wife and my daughter-in-law Amaya. Finally, the little girl sitting on Itama's lap is my granddaughter Tsunade-chan. She's the same age as yourself. Naruto greets everyone with a wave, saying, "Hello, nice to meet you all." Tsunade leaves her father's lap and approaches the redhead, who is somewhat alarmed by her close inspection because he sees a tiny replica of his mother staring at him. She takes a step back, smiles, and extends her hand. "Nice to meet you, Naruto-san. Wanna be friends?" She asks. The redhead blinks, but he smiles anyway, takes her hand, shakes it, and says, "Yeah sure, Tsunade-san. I'd like that." She then pulls him over to the couch, where they spend the remainder of the day getting to know one another better over a small family dinner before retiring for the night. Naruto nods his head and replies, "Thank you, Mito Oba, I'm really grateful for all this. Good night." Mito leads Naruto to an empty room on the second floor and opens the door for him. "This will be your room from now on, Naruto-kun. I know that you just lost your parents recently, but I hope in time that you will come to view us as your family and this house as your home. Tomorrow morning after breakfast we will go out into the village to get you some more clothes, as well as supplies for the academy. Rest well, little one. Good night." She smiles at him as he enters the room and shuts the door behind him. He then goes to the bed and lies down, closes his eyes, and opens them again to discover that he is in his mindscape. "Well, we made partner. I've gotta say it was a shock seeing Sarutobi Gigi that young, but even more shocking to see Ba-chan as a little girl," he says, glancing up at Kurama's towering form after seeing his 17-year-old self reflected back in the water with his new red hair and no whiskers. The giant fox simply snorts at that. "Tell me about it, Kit. I'd estimate that we're back about 15 years before the Second Shinobi War. Starting tomorrow, you're going to have to haul ass and start training to get back in shape and get a leg up on becoming strong enough to stop things from going pear-shaped. Also, don't draw on my chakra when you're around any leaf ninja. It will only end badly, seeing as in this time I'm sealed inside of Mito." Naruto nods in agreement and yaws. "Alright, I'm going to actually go to sleep. Talk to you another time, Kurama." With that, he vanishes from his mind, obtaining his rest for the days ahead. Main house of Senju. 5 a.m. the following day. The sun rises and our red-haired hero sits up in his bed, rubbing the sleep from his eyes before yawning and stretching his arms over his head. Once that is finished, he jumps out of bed, his feet gently slapping the chilly wooden floor as he moves to the window, looks out, and notices the sun barely visible in the sky. He then smiles. "Alright, time to get to work on getting my skills back up to scratch. Later on I have to go shopping with Mito Oba, so I think I'll just spam clones to work on Shurikenjutsu and chakra control. I myself will do physical exercises. Have to see if Mito Oba will buy me some wrist and ankle weights to help make my body stronger and faster." In light of that, he leaves his room as quietly as he can, being cautious not to wake anyone, and makes his way downstairs. He quickly leaves the Senju compound after making his way to the front door, putting on his sandals and leaving quietly after making sure he hasn't woken anyone. As he strolls through the village, he considers places where he can train in secret, where no one will notice or hear him. Suddenly, the Forest of Death comes to mind, So he chooses the 44th training grounds, aka the Death Forest. He arrives at the Forest of Death, a training ground with hundreds of tall trees and a tall fence with several gates on all sides, after 20 minutes of walking. When he feels he has enough, Naruto leaps to the top of the fence and lands inside the forest after placing his hands in the ram sign and focusing chakra on his legs. Okay, this will do nicely. Time to do this. He runs farther inside until he comes to a clearing with a river flowing through it. Okay, this will do nicely. Time to do this. He makes a cross-shaped sign with his fingers and exclaims, Multi-Shadow Clone Jutsu. Taju Kage Bushin no Jutsu. In a puff of smoke, 50 clones appear, all of them looking exactly like their creator. The creator clicks his tongue at the number but dismisses and continues to issue commands. Alright, listen up. I want you guys to split up into 2 groups of 25. The first group will work on chakra control. Start with leaf balancing. I don't want to go through life this time with sucky chakra control. Group 2, you're working on shuriken jutsu. Since we have no shuriken or kunai to work with yet, use rocks and sharpened sticks. At this point, the clones all nod and salute before splitting up into 2 groups and following orders to go off and complete their assigned tasks. In the meantime, Naruto makes the decision to begin his workouts. He begins by stretching to release his muscles, and then he begins by running 20 laps around the clearing. 25 minutes after returning, he completes his final lap and is only slightly out of breath. He chooses to take a 5-minute break, goes to the stream, and drinks a handful of water. He returns to work after his break, performing 50 push-ups, 50 sit-ups, 50 squats, 50 jumping jacks, and 50 chin-ups with a tree branch that hangs low. He decides it's a good time to return to the Senju house, take a shower, eat breakfast, and get ready for his day with Mito. After finishing his workout and looking up at the sky to estimate the time to be around 7 a.m. Before leaving, he instructs the clones to dispel in groups of 5 in 2 hours. After receiving confirmation from the 2 clone groups, he leaves the Forest of Death and returns to the village proper. He notices that every store is either open or about to open as he makes his way back to the Senju compound, and he waves back to those who wave at him. First, he returns to the Senju compound after an additional 15 minutes, and as he moves through the streets, every Senju clansman he encounters smiles and extends a cordial greeting, to which he reciprocates. Main house of Senju. Naruto laughs nervously but responds, I went out to train. My 2-chan started training me to be a ninja before he died, and he said that no matter what happened I should stick to my daily training, so I got up at 5 a.m. and headed out to find a good training spot. Once I found a good spot I started with some stretches, then did some laps around the training ground, then did 50 sit-ups, push-ups, jumping jacks, squats, and chakra control. Although she is a little taken aback that he is engaging in such rigorous physical training at the age of 4, Mito's eyes widen upon hearing this news. Even Tsunade, who has received physical training from Amaya, herself, and occasionally Itama since she was 3 years old, only completes 20 of each exercise and has not yet worked on chakra control. She quickly ignores it and grumbles, that's all good Naruto-kun, however you didn't have to leave the compound to train. We have a training ground behind the house. From this point on you will use those training grounds. I don't want to wake up to find you missing from the house and the compound ever again. I thought that you had run away. I'm sorry Mito Oba, I didn't mean to cause you any fear or hurt. I promise from now on I'll use the training grounds out back for my morning training. Please forgive me, Naruto says, shocking the older redhead. You are forgiven Naruto-kun. Now march upstairs and take a shower. You stink. I'll have some fresh clothes placed on your bed for you, and when you're dressed come on down to the dining for breakfast. The younger redhead nods as he rushes upstairs to get dressed. After 20 minutes, Naruto appears in the dining room dressed differently. He is wearing a short-sleeved red kimono shirt with mesh armor underneath, dark gray pants that reach his shins, and a dark orange sash tied at the waist. Overall, he now appears much more like a ninja in the eyes of the Senju family. Good morning Naruto-san, is the first thing he hears from the always vivacious Tsunade. He smiles at her and says, Good morning Tsunade-san. He then turns to face her parents and says, Good morning Itama-san. Amaya-san. The two of them respond to him in unison. Good morning Naruto-kun, san. He sits at the table directly next to Tsunade, across from Itama, with Tsunade across from her mother and Mito at the head. Itama chooses to bring something up to Naruto while they're eating their breakfast, which consists of steamed rice, miso soup, grilled fish, rolled omelets, tamagoyaki, tsukemono pickles, and dried seaweed, nori. So Naruto-kun, Ka-chan says that you left at 5 this morning to train and didn't even leave so much as a note. Do you distrust us so much you wouldn't let us know where you were and what you're doing? The little redhead swallows his food as Mito gives her son a slight glare, but before she can correct him, Naruto replies, It's not that I distrust any of you Itama-san, it's just that I'm used to getting up really early to train and I didn't want to wake anyone. Plus it never crossed my mind to leave a note seeing as normally I'd be with my Tsunade to train. Say Naruto-san, what kind of training do you do? Maybe we could train together from now on, Tsunade says in an attempt to lighten the mood. The red-haired boy smiles appreciatively at the blonde girl and answers, it's nothing too major, I do 20 laps, then after a 5-minute break for some water and to catch my breath, I do 50 each of push-ups, sit-ups, squats, jumping jacks, and then finish up the last hour with chakra control training. I'm still working on the leaf sticking exercise. Itama and Amaya's eyes widen slightly. Tsunade is furious, you get to do chakra control training? That's not fair, Tu-chan, Ka-chan, and Ba-chan said I have to wait until we start working on it in the academy. Naruto giggles at this, well to be fair, my Ka-chan started me on chakra control training right after I unlocked my chakra. According to her, because of my lineage I have way more chakra than most kids my age. I think she said I have as much chakra as a chunin or something, so it's pretty important for me to work on controlling it. Itama is among the adults who aren't on board who chooses to speak up. He's right, Su-chan. Being a full Uzumaki as he probably is means that his chakra levels are much higher than any other child, including yourself. I know from experience, being half Uzumaki myself, I have larger than average chakra reserves. Of course being half Senju makes them even slightly larger, but helps me with control. The blonde girl turns to her father, ready to ask how he knows that, but he already anticipates the question. When I was your age, I had the chakra levels of a fresh genin while everyone else in my age group had academy level chakra pools. The only non-Uzumaki or Senju that I've ever known that had a lot of chakra as a kid was the third Hokage. Mito nods in agreement, recalling how much chakra the 23-year-old possessed even as an 8-year-old. But she shakes her head and clears her throat, saying, enough of this discussion. Tsunade-chan, since Naruto-kun is now a member of this household, if you wish it and he agrees, he can start helping you to learn chakra control training. The blonde beams at this and turns to the younger redhead, who merely nods his head and smiles slightly, which makes her ecstatic as she gives him a tight embrace while repeatedly saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. He only blushes a little and pats her back. All of the adults make fun of the two kids, but Tsunade eventually lets go of Naruto and resumes eating, letting the redhead follow suit. After breakfast, Mito gets up and turns to face the two kids. Naruto-kun, Tsunade-chan, go put on your sandals. The three of us are going into the village to go shopping. Naruto-kun needs more clothes because even though Itama-chan's old clothes fit him okay, I don't want him to dress in his hand-me-downs. We also need to get Naruto-kun the standard sets of training kunai, shuriken, senbon, and ninja wire. Tsunade immediately goes to put on her sandals, but Naruto gives the older redhead a shy look. Say Mito-oba, can we maybe also pick up some wrist and ankle weights? I'd like to use them for training to help increase my strength and speed. I'd heard my Tu-chan talking once about how weights would help me to get stronger without keeping me from growing, he asks, rubbing the back of his head. Mito is taken aback by his request, but he nods inwardly to his father's insight. Of course we can, Naruto-kun, that'll pick up an extra set for Tsunade-chan. Tell me, Naruto-kun, did your parents start teaching you any taijutsu style? The younger redhead shakes his head and says, no, though Tu-chan did show me his own style. He called it Dragon Fist, Ryuken. The woman nods in agreement and thinks, okay, well, Tsunade-chan is already being trained in the Senju-style taijutsu by her father. Most of the kids at the academy are either learning the academy style or have begun learning their clan's style. If they have one, I'll take you into the Senju archives later and we'll find you a taijutsu style to learn, okay? The boy nodded his head, and the two then went to the door to put on their sandals. They found an impatiently waiting Tsunade, and after apologizing to her, they left. They spend the majority of the afternoon shopping. Naruto finds an outfit he likes at the clothing store, keeping the orange sash and red kimono shirt, but altering the shirt to blood red to match his hair and adding the Uzumaki swirl in white to the back. He gets several sets of this outfit by exchanging the gray pants for dark red ones and switching out his white sandals for black ones. He receives 3 spools of ninja wire, 2 holsters, and 2 sets of practice kunai, shuriken, and senbon from the shinobi supply store. Additionally, Mito purchases 2 sets of weights for his wrists and ankles, each weighing 5 pounds and 10 pounds, respectively. When they get to a small restaurant for lunch after shopping, Mito tells Tsunade why she received 2 sets of weights and gives 1 set to her granddaughter. The blonde woman sighs as she responds to her mother-in-law. Itama is leaving on another mission. He promised me that he'd be home for a week after he got back from the last one. And it's only been 3 days. We got into an argument and he said that it was his duty as the son of the first Hokage to show the strength of the Senju clan. After lunch, they return to the house, where Amaya greets them with a somewhat dejected expression, which worries Tsunade and Mito. He's so much like both his father and his uncle, Mito says, shaking her head and patting the woman on the shoulder. But instead of standing here pouting, you should take Tsunade-chan and the three of you should spend as much time as possible till he leaves for the mission. I'll have a discussion with Saru-chan about not giving Itama any more missions for a month after he returns from this one. Amaya smiles appreciatively at her statement, and she leads Tsunade by the hand up to her in Itama's room to do just that. Mito next turns to Naruto. Alright Naruto-kun, I'll take you to the basement now. That is where the Senju clan archives are at, although it's really just a big library filled with many scrolls on Tai, Nin, Gen, Ken, and even some Fuinjutsu. The two redheads descend to the basement, where Mito pulls out a kunai and uses it to cut her finger. She then swipes the bleeding finger across the door, which glows as seals cover it, and then there's a click and the glow goes away. Mito smiles as he leads him inside. What you just witnessed, Naruto-kun, is a piece of our clan's specialty, Fuinjutsu. Moreover, that was a blood seal. You will of course be learning how to create blood seals, but not for a long time anyway. The scrolls are arranged by type and the taijutsu scrolls are second shelf on the left. Naruto approaches the taijutsu shelf and starts looking at the various styles. After searching for a while, he is suddenly drawn to a particular scroll. It is blue in color, features a picture of the stars that make up the Big Dipper, and has the kanji Hokuto Shinken, Big Dipper God Fist, on the front. He smiles more and more as he reads the style's details, and when he is finally convinced, he rolls the scroll back up and approaches Mito, saying, I found it, the perfect style for me to learn. When she sees which style he wants to learn, she gasps because it is said to have originated in a foreign land before the Sage of the Six Paths and to be the strongest martial art ever. He nods, and they return to the main floor, where he eventually retrieves the memories from his clones. She shakes it off and smiles at him, saying, well, you certainly shoot for the stars, don't you, Naruto-kun? Well then, you may have that scroll and learn from it. Now let's head back upstairs and get ready for dinner. They talk about their plans for tomorrow, including Naruto's first day at the academy, during dinner that evening before going to bed. The Leaf Academy. The following day, the kanji for fire is displayed on the front of the Leaf Village Academy, a sizable structure covered in red paint. Children of all ages are out and about with their parents as the new school week gets underway, waiting for the teachers to open the doors. Two boys, however, are standing apart from all the contented families. The first one is leaning against the tree in front of the structure, standing at 3 feet 9 inches. He has dark eyes, spiky white hair, red lines under the corners of his eyes, and slightly tanned skin, making him a tall boy for his age. He was raised in the orphanage and goes by Jiraiya. The second boy, who stands 3 feet 6 inches and has long, straight black hair that reaches the middle of his back, is a typical height for a boy his age and is leaning against the building's side. He has light skin and somewhat delicate features, but his eyes stand out the most. They are golden with pupil slits, and there is what looks to be purple makeup surrounding them that reaches halfway to each side of his nose. Orochimaru Habi is his name, and he was recently left an orphan after his parents perished on a mission. The two boys' attention is abruptly drawn to the fact that everyone stops talking and looks in the same direction. When they see why, they realize that the Senju family has returned, but this time they are accompanied by a boy in an all-dark red outfit. He has short, spiky red hair, blue eyes, and slightly tanned skin. When Jiraiya and Orochimaru see the boy, they have different opinions. Jiraiya thinks, TCH, another pretty boy, and he's probably a jerk like Orochi Teme, while Orochimaru can only wonder who the boy is. Orochimaru muses, he looks strong. Maybe I'll be able to compare myself to him at last. Everyone starts discussing in private who the boy might be and why he is with Mito-sama and her family. However, the doors soon open, and two Chunin emerge to guide the kids inside as Tsunade catches Naruto by the wrist and pulls him inside into her classroom. The two women laugh as Naruto says goodbye to Mito and Amaya. When they arrive at the classroom, the teacher is waiting and welcoming each student. As they walk in, he gives Tsunade and Naruto a small smile. The teacher is a man of average height, 5 feet 9 inches, with gray eyes and mousy brown hair. He is dressed in the traditional Chunin uniform, which is an all-blue shinobi outfit with some gray armor covering his back and chest. The man is a 35-year-old veteran ninja named Ikus Hachibana. Tsunade-san, please come inside and take a seat. You young man must be the new student I was told about, he says, glancing down at the kids. Tsunade gives her friend a smile and goes inside while Naruto nods to the teacher, who goes on, now I've been informed that you are a member of the Uzumaki clan and your unique situation. Know that I will not allow any kind of disruptions in my classroom, and I don't care what clan you're from or who you're related to. In my eyes you're just another student. Understand? The red-headed man nods in agreement. Understood, sensei. Trust me, I'm not here to play around, I've come to learn to be the best shinobi I can be. His response makes the man smirk. Good, my name is Aikus Hachibana, but you can call me Aikus Sensei now. Class is about to begin. I'll call you inside in a few moments and you can introduce yourself to the class. After taking roll call and telling the class to settle down, Naruto hears him say, Alright class, before we begin we have a new student joining us today. Please do your best to give him a warm welcome. Come in. The redhead takes a deep breath, lets it out, opens the door, and enters the classroom. He looks around the classroom right away to see if he recognizes any faces besides Tsunade, and he notices Jiraiya and Orochimaru standing on opposite sides of the room, both of them staring at him. He then spots a familiar-looking face with a head of spiky silver hair, and he recognizes it right away as Tsukumo Hitaki, Kakashi's father, since only Hitakis could have hair like that. Aikus says, now introduce yourself, just your name, likes, dislikes, and dreams for the future. The red-haired student nods and looks at the class as he follows instructions, saying, Hello, my name is Naruto Uzumaki. My likes are ramen, learning new things, training, and gardening. My dislikes are perverts, the 3 minutes it takes for the water to boil for ramen, and anyone who puts another down. My dreams for the future are to be a great shinobi, bring lasting peace to the elemental nations, and to have a family. Everyone reacts differently. All the girls, with the exception of Tsunade and one dark-haired girl, swoon at his desire to start a family. With the exception of Jiraiya, Tsukumo, and Orochimaru, the majority of the boys believe his dream of perpetual peace in the elemental nations is foolish. After a short while, Aikus speaks up once more and says, Alright, thank you for that, Naruto-san. Why don't you have a seat next to Tsukumo? He then gestures to the boy who is seated in the middle section, third row. Naruto nods and moves up there, taking the vacant seat to the left of the boy with silver hair. This marks the start of his second academy term. After 6 months have passed since Naruto returned to time, 6 months since he joined the academy, and 6 months since he joined the Senju family. These 6 months have been extremely busy, with him training non-stop. He rises at 5 a.m. every day, goes to the Forest of Death, and makes as many clones as he can, 100 at this point, before dividing them up into groups of 10 to practice various skills. The first group always focuses on chakra control. After mastering leaf sticking, they are now able to walk trees. The second group works on shurikenjutsu, honing his aim. The third group works on the first of the basic 3, the substitution jutsu, Kawarimi no jutsu. The fourth group works on the transformation jutsu, Henge no jutsu. And the fifth group works on the normal clone jutsu, Bushin no jutsu. The sixth group has been practicing body flicker jutsu, Shunshin no jutsu, a high-speed movement technique, while the previous 5 groups have been practicing new skills. The 7th and 8th groups have been practicing the Big Dipper God Fist starting stances, and it has been going really well. The 10th and final group has been practicing the Fuinjutsu that Mito began teaching him 2 months ago, while the 9th group has been learning everything there is to know about human anatomy to help with his taijutsu style. He's becoming more and more fit in terms of his physical activity, particularly with the weights on his wrists and ankles, which are now up to 10 and 20 pounds on each wrist and ankle, respectively. He now works out with Tsunade in the mornings. He has rapidly risen to the top of the academy's class and, along with his new friends Tsukumo and Orochimaru, has been labeled a genius. In addition to Tsunade, he has made friends with a few other students in his class. Tsukumo Hitaki is the first, and he has found the boy to be much more gregarious than his future son. At times, they even spar outside of the academy. His second friend is Jiraiya, whom he befriended after he stood up for the boy against some bullies who were calling him dead last because of his poor grades and lack of proficiency in all ninja domains. The two have been close friends ever since, and the redhead has even been assisting the white-haired boy with his basic 3 and shurikenjutsu. Additionally, he has come to be associated with Orochimaru, who views him as a rival but has not yet made the move to become his friend, preferring to train and study by himself. However, he has made it his goal to disassociate the young Sannin to be from that, believing that if he can have a positive impact on the boy, he will not grow up to be a crazy pedophile. Amaya is 4 months pregnant, so it was recently revealed that the Senju family will be expanding by 1 member. This is another development in his new life. When Tsunade learned she would be a big sister, she was overjoyed and vowed to shield her younger sibling from anything that might hurt them. Naruto simply returned to his calligraphy practice, which was a prerequisite to learning Fuinjutsu, and congratulated Itama and Amaya on their news. Itama chose to take a position in the torture and interrogation division after Amaya became pregnant, which allowed him more time to train Tsunade and assist Naruto in honing his new taijutsu technique against a more skilled foe. The redhead will start learning how to use his bloodlines correctly after today, But today will be different because Naruto and the rest of the class will start training in their elemental affinities. The Leaf Academy, the classroom of Aikus the seasoned shinobi, has no trouble beginning today's lesson because he can't help but notice how much his students have improved over the past 6 months. He looks around and notices that he has everyone's attention, so he smirks to himself as he says, "Alright class, today we'll be learning something entirely new now. As you all know, we've been teaching you all 3 basic jutsu, those being the substitution, transformation, and clone. Now those were to prepare you for more advanced techniques, and today is the true start of learning those more advanced techniques." He clears his throat to get everyone's attention. He proceeds to take out 2 piles of papers and keeps going. "Today we will be testing your elemental affinities. Now each ninja in the world is aligned to a specific elemental nature, which makes using jutsu of that element easier and jutsu of opposing elements harder. This paper I have here is called chakra paper, and each of you will be receiving a piece. What it does, it tells you your affinity. Now pay close attention to what I say next, as I don't want to repeat myself." Everyone responds together, "Yes, Aikus-sensei." Now each of the 5 elements does something different to this paper. If your affinity is fire, it will burn to ash. If your affinity is water, it will get wet and turn soggy. If your affinity is earth, it will crumble and turn to dust. If it is lightning, it will crinkle up into a ball. Finally, if it is wind, the paper will split down the middle. He then places one piece between his fingers in his dominant hand, which is his left, and says, "All you do is you place the paper between 2 fingers of your chakra to it, and it will tell you what your affinity is." The 5-year-olds stare in amazement as he demonstrates his fire affinity by burning the paper to ash after saying this, and then they begin to enthusiastically discuss what their own affinities might be. "Alright, when I call your name, come up here, take a piece of paper and channel your chakra." He then starts calling names, and Naruto doesn't really pay attention to most of them because they usually get either fire, water, or earth. However, he does pay attention when his friends are called, like Tsukumo Hitaki. The silver-haired boy approaches the teacher and walks down the aisle. He puts his piece of chakra paper between his right hand's fingers and applies his chakra, and to his surprise, it crinkles up into a ball and emits sparks. At this, Aikus whistles. "Well, looks like we got our first special case. You have a lightning affinity, and from the looks of it, a strong one. Congrats, Tsukumo-san." Tsukumo smiles and nods appreciatively to the man before returning to his seat. Following Tsukumo, Naruto turns his attention to Orochimaru Habi. The pale recluse descends to the instructor and follows everyone else's instructions, but his is particularly startling because the paper splits in 2 when he directs his chakra toward it. Aikus shakes his head in disbelief. "Damn, 2 for 2 on the prodigies and their affinities. You have a wind affinity, Orochimaru-san, which for the land of fire is incredibly rare. I've no doubt you'll be a powerful shinobi in the future." Orochimaru grins as he returns to his seat, and Naruto tones out Aikus-sensei once more, that is, until he hears the cheery name, Jiraiya no name. He sees the white-haired boy frown when no name is added to his first name, but he still approaches the teacher to pick up his paper. His paper burns to ash when he does this, indicating that he has a fire affinity. He then throws away the leftover ash and returns to his seat. After hearing Tsunade's name called a few minutes later, he listens intently to determine her elemental affinity. The blonde girl eagerly accepts the paper in the hopes that she will share her grandfather's 2 primary affinities, earth and water, and thus inherit his wood-release bloodline. She is let down, though, when the paper she is holding crinkles into a ball, proving that lightning is her primary affinity. She turns on her heels and pouts as she returns to her desk, scowling at the paper and throwing it in the trash. Following that, Naruto simply tunes out the names once more while considering the fundamental storage seal Mito taught him and how to make it better. He only just manages to do so when he hears the name Izumi Uchiha, since Uchiha comes before Uzumaki. The girl in question has the typical Uchiha clan features of black hair and onyx eyes, but her hair reaches her mid-back, and she has a kinder face than most Uchiha. Izumi uses the chakra paper to channel her chakra, and naturally, since most Uchiha have it, she receives a fire affinity. However, she appears disappointed. Perhaps she was hoping for something different. He finally hears, "Naruto Uzumaki, you're up." When she returns to her seat, he smiles and leaps out of his chair, making his way eagerly to the front of the classroom. Everyone, even the normally stoic Aikus, is shocked by what happens when he excitedly takes the paper, places it between his right hand's middle and pointer fingers, and channels his chakra. Each of the 4 pieces of his chakra paper has a distinct function. One becomes wet, one burns to ash, one crumbles to dust, and the final one crinkles up and releases sparks. "Did I do something wrong, sensei? What does this mean?" the redhead asks, tilting his head to the side in confusion as he looks on inside, laughing at the faces everyone is making. "No, you didn't do anything wrong, Naruto-san. It's just that I've never seen something like this before." What that means is that you have a main affinity to all 5 of the elements. You are without a doubt going to be a powerhouse when you're older. You can take your seat now. Naruto nods and returns to his seat, laughing at his friend Tsukumo's incredulous expression. Even though most people are curious as to how the redhead developed an affinity for all 5 major elements, class continues as usual after that. Naruto and Tsunade leave the academy after Aikus informs them that they will all receive E-rank jutsu of their elements to learn over the course of the next 6 months beginning tomorrow. When they arrive at the house, they discover Mito waiting outside, but Hiruzen Sarutobi, dressed in his official Hokage robes and hat, is standing next to her, which makes the redhead tense. When Tsunade notices this, Mito looks worried and asks, "What's wrong, Tsunade-chan? Why do you look so sad?" The little blonde pouts as she explains, "We had our elemental affinities tested today, and I have a lightning affinity." Tsunade, on the other hand, rudely greets the adults. "Hey Ba-chan, Saru Oja-san." Tsunade sighs and says, "I wanted to have the same affinities as Hashijiji. I wanted to be able to use wood release like him, and prove that I'm worthy to carry on his legacy." The red-haired woman blinks at her granddaughter, asking, "What's so bad about having a lightning affinity?" Sarutobi kneels down and takes her by the shoulders at that point, saying, "Tsunade-chan, you don't have to have Hashirama-sensei's bloodline to continue his legacy. You are his legacy. You carry his blood and his will of fire. Never forget that, young lady." This makes her feel much better, and she rushes inside, leaving the 2 adults with Naruto, who laughs nervously at their expressions. After a year, the Forest of Death. 1 year has passed since it was revealed that Naruto possesses all 5 major elements. On that day, he spoke with Sarutobi and Mito upon his return home, and they both expressed curiosity about how he accomplished this. He maintained his innocent demeanor, though, telling them that he had no idea what elements his parents possessed because they had never used elemental jutsu in front of him before they passed away. Sarutobi then offered to let him graduate early so he could start learning how to control his elements and other things, but he declined, saying he would prefer to graduate with his friends. The 24-year-old understood. Naruto and his friends have all grown stronger and taller over the past year. Naruto, Tsukumo, and Orochimaru are now tied for Rookie of the Year, while Jiraiya is still in last place despite Naruto's assistance, but only because of his terrible taijutsu and inability to create a Bushin to save his life. Unbeknownst to the redhead, Tsunade, who is by far the strongest kunoichi in the class, has started to develop feelings for him because of his kindness and desire to better himself, as well as the way he interacts with her younger brother. That's another matter entirely. About 8 months ago, Amaya gave birth to a healthy boy named Nawaki Senju. He has light brown hair tufts and his mother's green eyes. Naruto has left a strengthened shadow clone at the Senju house to avoid suspicion, and he is currently in his usual clearing in the Forest of Death on this day off from the academy. As he gets ready to start the next stage of his training, learning how to use the 3 bloodlines that the tailed beasts have given him, the redhead takes a breath. Another wonderful thing about the year is that his reserves have returned to Anbu level. He inhales, creates the cross-shaped seal, and exclaims, "Multi-shadow clone jutsu." 200 clones appear in a puff of smoke. Alright guys, break up into groups of 21st group. Continue chakra control. Combine the water walking exercise with the leaf and kunai balancing exercises. The first group salutes and proceeds to the river to carry out his instructions. Group 2 work on the stances for that kenjutsu style I found in the Senju archives. Group 3, you're on the next kata for the Hokuto Shinken. He turns to face the second group, and they follow his instructions by going in different directions. The hidden Mitsurugi Ryu, Flying Heaven Governed Sword style. Kenjutsu style that Naruto is referring to is another ancient style that he discovered in the Senju archives after developing an interest in Kenjutsu 6 months ago as a result of his friendship with Tsukumo. Group 4, you get to read the intermediate anatomy books. Group 5, your job is to work on the new seals Mito Obasan taught me. He turns to the next 2 groups, and they follow his instructions, despite the 4th group's complaints about having to read. Groups 6 and 7, your job is to split into 4 groups of 10. Each subgroup is to work on earth, fire, wind, and water nature training using leaves. The 2 groups give him a salute before going about their tasks. He moves on to the final 3 groups. Alright, groups 8, 9, and 10, your job is to begin training in our bloodlines. Group 8, you got magnet release. Group 9, lava release. And group 10, boil release. Get it, boys. Grumbling about lazy ass originals, the 3 groups of clones set out to begin their training. Naruto himself drops to his knees, pulls out a storage scroll, releases weighted metal plates from its seal, and then adds 1 more plate to each of his ankle and wrist weights. By doing this, their weight is increased to 50 pounds per wrist and 60 pounds per ankle. He then reseals the remaining plates, stores the scroll, and starts his daily workouts, which now include 50 laps and 100 push-ups, sit-ups, squats, jumping jacks, and chin-ups each. He is now 4 feet 1 and among the tallest of his class, just behind Jiraiya, who is 4 feet 3, thanks to his workouts and a healthy diet. He is also much taller and more fit than he was when he was 6 years old. After finishing his physical training, he checks the time and realizes he only has a few minutes to get home from breakfast. He body flickers from the forest and, after a few leaps, appears in his room, where his clone is waiting for him. It appears to be just as sweaty as he is, so he dispels it and takes a shower. He's thinking about how graduation is just 2 months away. While he's cleaning himself up, he's also wondering who his teammates and Jonin Sensei will be. He heads downstairs for the customary family breakfast after finishing and getting dressed, only to discover that Amaya and Lil Nawaki are already there. The blonde woman smiles at him and says, "Good morning, Naruto-kun. Did you have a good training session with Tsunade-chan and Tama-kun?" The redhead nods and says, "Sure did. Though Tsunade-chan still can't keep up with me, although she comes pretty close, must be her quarter Uzumaki heritage." Amaya simply giggles at this, and then the girl enters. In the nearly 2 years that he has been living with them, Tsunade has barely changed. Because of her training, she is now 3 feet 9 inches tall and has a slender build for her age. She now wears a light green short skirt kimono with a dark blue obi tied tightly at the waist. The skirt has a slit in the left leg for ease of movement, and her hair is pulled back into a single high ponytail. A hint of mesh under armor is also visible over her chest. Her feet are currently bare, but she has bandages wrapped around her ankles and halfway up her shins, covering her ankle weights. She also has red arm warmers on her wrists and forearms, covering her wrist weights. Overall, he can clearly see glimpses of her future beauty in her current features. The blonde smiles and replies in kind, "You've grown to Naruto-kun. I don't care what anyone says. To me you're the best shinobi in the academy. Orochimaru and Tsukumo are second best compared to you." Naruto nods his head in gratitude as they take their customary seats at the table to eat. She blushes a little when she sees him staring at her, but she chooses to play a practical joke on him. "See something you like, Naruto-kun?" The brown-haired man laughs loudly at this, saying, "Ha ha 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 ha. Confidence, I like that. After all, I'd expect nothing less of an Uzumaki. Don't worry about me, kiddo. I'll be fine. After all, I received private instruction from 2 Hokages, as well as an Uzumaki seal mistress. Let's head out back." After breakfast, Itama looks at the 2 children and says, "Hey Su-chan, Naruto-kun, how about we have a spar? The 2 of you against me." As they all enter their taijutsu stances, the 2 6-year-olds stand across from the 30-year-old man. The Senju-style taijutsu known as 1000 branch fist, Senin Shibu Ken, which focuses on overwhelming your opponents with strong and unpredictable strikes, is the stance that Tsunade and her father both adopt. However, Naruto adopts the Hokuto Shin-ken stance, bending and spreading his legs wide apart, with his left leg in front of his right. His hands are held in a particular manner, with his left hand raised high in the air and both palms open, and his right hand lowered close to his right thigh. The 2 academy students and the Jonin shinobi rush each other and start their spar at an invisible signal. The Leaf Academy after 2 months' day of graduation. Finally, the moment has come for the students to become genin, the first step toward becoming true ninja. Everyone showed up early for the tests and has been eager for them to be finished. 20 written questions that tested their historical knowledge and tactical thinking comprised the first section of the graduation exam. The second portion of the test involved throwing shuriken and kunai. You were given 10 kunai and 10 shuriken, and each hit of the bullseye for the kunai was worth 10 points, while each hit of the crucial spots on the straw dummies for the shuriken was worth 10 points. The clan children performed better on that test, receiving 70 or 80 100ths on the kunai throwing and 70 100ths on the shuriken. The majority of civilian-born people received 60 100ths on both, which is barely passing for both the kunai and shuriken. Tsunade received 90 100ths on both, while Izumi Uchiha received 85 100ths on kunai because one of her kunai was just an inch to the left of the bullseye, and she received 90 100ths on the shuriken. Only 2 kunoichi received higher scores. Jiraiya then demonstrated his progress by receiving 85s on both. The 3 geniuses then received 100 100ths on both kunai and shuriken. However, Naruto had to display his skills by throwing all of his kunai and shuriken at once while wearing a blindfold. A taijutsu spar with a chunin was the third test. According to the rules, you had to stay in the ring for at least 2 minutes in order to pass. If you could stay in the ring for the entire 5 minutes without getting knocked out, you would receive a perfect score. The majority of the civilian-born children were defeated after barely surviving the 2 minutes before being ejected from the ring or forfeited. The clan kids each had 3 minutes. Izumi, Tsunade's opponent, lasted 4 minutes and 15 seconds against a Chunin Kunoichi, while Tsunade faced Ikus directly and was defeated after 4 minutes and 25 seconds after that. Jiraiya had his chance and used the Academy style to last 3 minutes and 50 seconds before his Chunin opponent knocked him out. Orochimaru, Tsukumo, and Naruto performed exceptionally well on this test once more. Tsukumo, the first of the three to leave, was able to endure the entire 5 minutes and even brought his opponent to his knees. Tsukumo was followed by Orochimaru, who also lasted the entire 5 minutes and defeated his opponent by ejecting him from the ring at the last second. As usual, Naruto was last and, predictably, he fought Ikus-sensei for the entire 5 minutes. However, he used his Hokudo Shinken to hit the man's left arm, right leg, and spine, causing him to become incapacitated until the damage was reversed. The redhead was told that his style would be dangerous once it was perfected, and he gained the teacher's gratitude by reversing what he had done to him. They were currently awaiting the ninjutsu portion of the final exam. According to what he has heard, the ninjutsu test includes an E and D rank elemental jutsu in addition to the basic 3. Ikus-sensei eventually starts calling names for everyone to come to the back room, and almost everyone returns wearing brand new, shiny black or blue headbands. Of course, 1 or 2 of the civilian children don't get their headbands when the clan children return. They are all wearing headbands, some around their necks or arms, others over their foreheads. When his friends are called, Naruto pays close attention. Tsunade enters and masters the ninjutsu part. She first replaces it with a fern in the corner, then transforms into her grandmother, creates 2 flawless clones, and then flickers her body from one side of the room to the other, leaving behind leaves. She creates strings of electricity using the lightning release. Static strings jutsu, Raiden. Seiteki Suji no Jutsu. For her E-rank lightning jutsu, which connects to a practice dummy and gives it tiny shocks, then, using lightning release. Lightning bolt jutsu, Raiden. Raikurai no Jutsu. Her D-rank lightning jutsu, she makes hand gestures and releases a brief lightning bolt from her hand, striking the dummy and leaving its chest burned by electricity. She requests a green cloth for her headband and proudly ties it around her head. After receiving it for her flawless performance, her cheeks heat up as she returns to her seat after Naruto gives her a proud smile. As soon as she leaves with her protector, Jiraiya is actually the next of his friends to enter, and the white-haired boy appears extremely anxious. Once inside, Jiraiya uses a chair to perform the substitution. He then transforms into an exact replica of the third Hokage, creating 2 usable clones and body flickering for around 100 feet, which is the minimum distance needed to pass. He then uses the fire release, burning leaf jutsu, Kaden, Tensho Rifu no Jutsu, for his E-rank fire jutsu, which involves making a tiny amount of burning leaves in his mouth and spitting them out at the test dummy, slightly irritating its chest and eyes. Lastly, he uses fire release, flash fan jutsu, Kaden, Senko Uchiwa no Jutsu, for his D-rank, which enables him to inhale a good amount of air while making 3 hand signals and then exhale it in a brief funnel of flames that lasts only a few seconds in a versus-shaped wave, giving the dummy light burns. When he's finished, he gets his headband and proudly leaves, giving Naruto a thumbs up to demonstrate how beneficial his remedial lessons were. Orochimaru, who is composed as usual, comes next. He masterfully executes the first 4 techniques, even turning into a flawless reflection of his deceased father. He uses the wind release, wind clone jutsu, Futon, Kei's Bushin no Jutsu, for his E-rank wind jutsu, which enables him to make a wind clone of himself. He attacks a dummy with it, and it immediately dispels in a wind gust. He uses wind release, projectile deflection blast, Futon, Hashitai Tawami Bakuhatsu, for his D-rank jutsu, which enables him to develop a large amount of chest air and then release it as a gust from his mouth that is powerful enough to push the dummy back. After finishing, he puts his headband on and ties it around his left arm before returning to the classroom and quietly finding a seat. Tsukumo then completes the first 4 flawlessly. He then uses lightning release, lightning clone jutsu, Raiden, Raiko Bushin no Jutsu, for his E-rank lightning jutsu, which enables him to create a solid clone made of lightning chakra. The clone attacks the dummy, sending shocks with each strike before dispelling itself. He uses lightning release, electron jutsu, Raiden, Denshi no Jutsu, for his D-rank, which, once the hand signs are finished, produces a crackling, sparking sphere of electricity in his hands that he tosses at the dummy, electrocuting it when it strikes. Tsukumo appears with his headband on as usual, which only serves to accentuate his already spiky hair. Naturally, the second best kunoichi in the class, Izumi Uchiha, who appears almost as confident as Tsunade did before her, is the last to catch Naruto's attention. Like everyone else, Izumi executes the 4 fundamental techniques flawlessly. In order to carve the word idiot into the dummy, she uses the fire release finger flame jutsu. Kaden. Shushi Hano no Jutsu. For her E rank, this technique enables her to channel fire chakra to her finger and create a small ball of flame over it. She uses the fire release flame knife jutsu. Kaden. Hano Naifu no Jutsu. For her D rank, to do this, she takes out a kunai, channels fire chakra into it, and it ignites without harm, then throws it at the dummy, cutting through it with ease. Izumi ties her headband around her hair and wears it as a hairband as she leaves the room. When Aikus finally yells, "Naruto Uzumaki!" the redhead gets up to go into the back, but before he can do so, he hears all of his friends calling out to him. Tsunade says, "You can do it, Naruto-kun." Sakumo gives him a thumbs up, saying, "Crush it, Naruto." Jiraiya crosses his arms, saying, "Show up, Orochi Teme." Naruto simply gives each of his friends a final smile before entering the back room. "Alright, Naruto-san. For starters, you need to demonstrate the substitution, then the transformation, then the clone jutsu, and finally the body flicker. When that is done, since you have 5 elements, we'll need you to demonstrate 1 jutsu of each of them," says Aikus-sensei, who has been teaching him for almost 2 years. While Aikus and the other 2 Chunin blink at this, the red-headed person asks, "Say sensei, if I performed a different clone technique for the first portion, like say the earth release, shadow clone, Doden, Cage Bushin, could that count towards my clone jutsu and one of my elemental jutsu?" They then have a brief, quiet conversation. Following their conversation, Aikus turns back to Naruto and says, "We've come to the decision to allow it. The point is to make sure you make clones, no matter what kind they're." The boy nods and starts the test, first substituting with one of the instructors before switching back, then transforming into an exact replica of the first Hokage, performing the earth release shadow clone as he stated, and creating 2 mud clones of himself. He smiles regretfully at the puddles of mud that the 2 clones leave behind after he drives them away. He then executes water release gunshot, Sweden, Tepodama, which involves making a few hand gestures, inhaling as his chest expands, and then releasing condensed water balls from his mouth that travel quickly, striking the dummy and creating holes in it. He then performs fire release fireball jutsu, Kaden. Hidama, after replacing the dummy with a new one. This involves making 3 hand signals, taking a breath, and then releasing a medium-sized ball of flames from his mouth that burn orange and instantly set the dummy on fire. Following the Chunin's water release method of eliminating the dummy, Naruto proceeds to his 4th element, lightning release lightning ball, Raiden, Raikyu, in which he raises his hands above his head to form a tiny ball of electricity between them before lowering them and hurling the ball at the dummy. The dummy is covered in a swirl of electricity when it strikes, resulting in electrical burns all over it. Then, for his last jutsu, he employs wind release Gale Palm, Futon, Reposho, in which he first pulls out a kunai and tosses it before clapping his hands and unleashing a gale of compressed winds that accelerate the weapon and send it deep into the dummy's heart. The instructors congratulate him after he completes his final jutsu, and he puts a blue headband around his forehead in the traditional manner. Aikus follows him as he leaves the room, and Sakumo gives him a high five as he approaches his desk. The Chunin clears his throat to draw everyone's attention. "Alright everyone, first off I want to say congratulations to all of those who graduated. You have taken your first steps on your road to becoming splendid shinobi and kunoichi. For those who failed, better luck next year. Now you have the next week off, but be back here at 10 a.m. sharp next Monday morning for your team assignments and to meet your Jonin sensei." The redhead laughs at the blonde and pats her back, saying, "We sure are, Tsunade-chan, but next week we'll find out who our teachers for the foreseeable future will be, and I have this feeling that most of us will get someone powerful." Sakumo laughs at that statement, saying, "Well, I just hope that I'm paired with you as a teammate, Naruto. I think you and me together with a competent kunoichi could be an unstoppable force." Jiraiya shakes his head and says, "In any case, how about we all go out to celebrate our graduating?" Pretty boy Hitaki is buying. Naruto nods and says, "Alright, sure. That's so kind of you to buy everyone lunch, Sakumo." Tsunade nods wisely and says, "Yes, you have a kind heart, Hitaki-san." However, the boy just sits there, trying to think of something to say after noticing that Izumi and Orochimaru are alone. The redhead gets up and approaches them, starting with the Uchiha girl. "Can I help you, Uzumaki-san?" she asks, glancing at him bewildered. Naruto gives her a soft smile and replies, "Just call me Naruto. I hate formality. No, you can't help me, but perhaps I can help you. You see, a bunch of us are going to lunch to celebrate graduating and I thought maybe you'd like to come along?" Sakumo is buying. She continues to stare at him with disdain. "Is this a pity offer?" "Because I don't need nor want your pity. I may not be like others of my clan, but I am still proud to be a Uchiha. The red-headed man sighs. It has nothing to do with pity, though I will admit there is another motive to my offer. The way I figure it is that we might get teamed up together, and it's better to start to get to know a potential teammate now rather than later. Besides, everyone can use friends, even a Uchiha. Well, in that case, then I would love to join you for a free meal. Naruto smiles at her and says, good, head on over to the group and introduce yourself. I have one more person to talk to. He then moves over to the loner prodigy, while Izumi approaches the small group and formally introduces herself. You don't need to be alone, Orochimaru. I know the pain you must be feeling deep down, losing your parents at a young age. It's the kind of thing you never quite get over. My parents have been dead over 2 years and I still haven't gotten over it. The pale boy looks at Naruto in surprise, but he quickly bows his head and hides his eyes behind his bangs before asking, how do you do it? How can you be so cheerful despite the loss of your parents? You take it one day at a time, and you realize that no matter what, your parents loved you and they wouldn't want you to mourn their deaths forever. They would want you to live your life, make friends, keep moving forward and have great adventures. That doesn't mean you should forget them. You can still remember all the good times, just don't get stuck in the past, because that solves nothing, Naruto says, patting his shoulder. Orochimaru looks at him in shock, realizing that if his father could see him and tell him to go play with other kids. In light of this, he nods his head to the redhead and smiles softly, saying, thank you, Naruto-san, I will try to take your advice. Naruto simply smiles back at him and replies, well, you can start by joining me and the others for lunch. Our fellow genius Tsukumo is buying. The black-haired boy gets up and says, lead the way. The two geniuses then rejoin the group, and the 6 genin depart the classroom for a barbecue restaurant. The man thinks, I have the feeling that group is going to change the world in the future. I'm interested to see where their journeys lead them. The Leaf Academy day of the team assignment. 1 week later. The week that has passed since graduation has flown by. Naruto's group had a pleasant lunch at a barbecue restaurant owned by the Akamichi clan. After leaving the academy that day, everyone chatted and had a good time. Even so, there were amusing moments, such as when Jiraiya and Orochimaru argued over a piece of pork, and the most hilarious of all was when Tsukumo had to pay the bill, which made the silver-haired boy cry uncontrollably because he had lost his allowance money. Everyone then parted ways with the agreement to get together for a group spar in a few days. The entire Senju clan threw a party for Naruto and Tsunade when they arrived home to congratulate them on becoming genin. The main family members gave gifts to each of them. Tsunade's parents gave her a new kunai and shuriken holster, and Mito gave her a beginner's scroll on medical ninjutsu written by Hashirama himself, which greatly thrilled her. However, Amaya gave Naruto a gray cargo vest with silver fur lining the bottom and collar. When asked why, she simply replied, I thought it screamed Naruto. Naruto thanked her politely and put it on right away. Itama gave him 5 scrolls of C-rank elemental techniques, 1 for each of the 5 main elements, and a playful warning, now don't go using those techniques to hurt people. Mito, on the other hand, gave him a brand new katana. The blade is about 28 inches long, made of chakra-conductive metal, and polished to a sheen. The tsuba is round and shaped like the Uzumaki swirl. The sheath is made of sturdy wood and is also black, with pictures of red plum blossoms adorning it. The grip is wrapped in black cloth. As Mito tells him that the blade is called Kurihime, Black Princess, and that it was once owned by a samurai who had married into the Uzumaki clan and was a master of his kenjutsu style, hidden Mitsurugi Ryu, he takes it with reverence. Kenshin Himura was his name. Naruto hugged her and said he would make good use of the sword. Tsunade and Naruto then spent the remainder of the week interacting with everyone and getting to know the new members of the group because they both wanted to be great kunoichi. The 2 girls in the group became friends and respected each other throughout the week. Even though Naruto is certain of one Tima, the future Sannin taught by Hiruzen Sarutobia, they are now waiting for Aiku-sensei to come in and tell them who they will be paired with. Alright. Look alive everyone. Today you find out who you will be placed into 3-man squads with, and who your Jonin-sensei, commander, will be. Pay attention, because if you miss your name I'm not going to repeat myself, the brown-haired man says after a few more minutes, clearing his throat to get everyone's attention for the final time. At that point, everyone starts to listen as the man calls out the names and team numbers. But, as he will do with Iruka in the future, Naruto ignores him and pulls out a scroll and some ink to start working on another seal that Mito taught him, this time, a simple barrier seal. He returns after working on it for a short while when he hears Aiku say, Team 7 will consist of Orochimaru Habi, Tsunade Senju, and Jiraiya your sensei will be Hiruzen Sarutobi. Everyone reacts differently to this statement, and the majority of the class finds it hard to believe that the Hokage, the man known as the god of shinobi, is actually taking a team. Orochimaru is happy about the news because he knows that the 3rd Hokage can teach him how to be a really powerful ninja. Even though Jiraiya is glad to be learning from the Hokage, he is a little uncomfortable being paired with Orochimaru and Tsunade because he thinks they will tease him once they are separated from his friend Naruto. Tsunade, on the other hand, is thrilled that the man who received instruction from both her grandfather and granduncle will be her teacher. It also doesn't hurt that she has known him her entire life. Aikus swiftly clears his throat to restore order to the class. Yes, I know it's shocking that Lord Third is taking a team, however he believes that it's time for him to pass down what he knows to the next generation now to continue. Team 8 will consist of, he says, naming 3 more genin without names and 1 more jonin. When he gets to Team 9, he says, Team 9 will consist of Tsukumo Hitaki, Izumi Uchiha, and Naruto Uzumaki. Your jonin sensei will be Danzo Shimura. Don't get him wrong, Naruto is pleased to be paired with both his new friend and the class's second best kunoichi, Izumi, and his old friend Tsukumo, their sensei, who is known throughout the elemental nations as the darkness of Shinobi. Shinobi no Yami is what surprises him. This is the same man who had intended to use him as a weapon from the moment Kurama was sealed inside of him. He recalls that Tsunade went into a coma following Pain's invasion, and Danzo was chosen as the 6th Hokage candidate, Rokudame Hokage Koho. Danzo was the one who had wanted the Land of Fire to dominate all of the elemental nations and had led Root, a covert branch of Anbu that was exclusively loyal to him. The man had even gone so far as to have multiple pairs of Sharingan implanted after his right arm was replaced with one made from the first Hokage's cells after a protracted battle that, if memory serves me correctly, included Danzo summoning some sort of animal. The man was ultimately killed by Naruto's errant teammate Sasuke Uchiha. He pushes his memories aside and acknowledges that this Danzo is not yet the person he remembers and that, if he approaches it correctly, he may never fully transform into that man. Additionally, since Sarutobi and Danzo were childhood rivals, Danzo is thought to be the second strongest man in the village at the moment, making him at least an S-rank shinobi. The redhead smiles at his friends. Yeah, it's great. Also from what I've heard our sensei is pretty strong. Tsukumo claps him on the shoulder, bringing him out of his reverie. How about that, Naruto? Looks like we're teammates, and our third member is Izumi-san? The silver-haired boy gives him a perplexed look, but they both turn back to Aikus. Okay. Those are all the teams. Your Jonin sensei will be here to pick you up soon, so why don't you all sit with your teammates and get to know them until they do? The man concludes by listing all of the teams. It's been my pleasure to be your instructor for the last 2 years and I look forward to watching each of your careers. He then turns to leave the room, leaving the genin to reorganize themselves into their teams. Izumi approaches and sits down as the third person who typically shares a desk with Tsukumo, and Naruto gets up and moves. The girl from Uchiha looks at her male acquaintances. Looks like your insights were correct, Naruto. We've been teamed together. So what were you two boys talking about? Naruto is giving her a contemplative gaze and responds. Naruto was saying that our Jonin sensei is strong and I was about to ask him how he knows that. The blonde smirks at this. Well, since I live with the wife of the first Hokage, I've met a lot of people over the last 2 years. Chief among those is the third Hokage. His teammates Homura-san and Kaharu-san, all 3 of them have mentioned Danzo Shimura before. According to Hiruzen, the man is the second strongest ninja in the village after himself. As he puts it, Danzo is easily an S-rank shinobi. He's smart, cold, calm, and collected. Izumi nods in agreement, saying, I've also heard of Danzo Shimura. My cousin Kagami Uchiha was his teammate as genin and still goes on missions with the man at times, and he always speaks highly of his skills as a ninja. Tsukumo assumes a contemplative pose at this point, asking, so what you two are saying is that we're going to be learning under a man nearly as strong as the third? Both of them nod, which made him smile a little. Good, then, that means we won't be falling behind our friends who are trained by Lord Hokage. The other two laugh at this, and they all engage in a casual conversation. Teams 7 and 9 are the only ones remaining after each team's sensei arrives and removes them over the course of the following 2 hours. Do you guys think that Hiruzen sensei and Danzo sensei will have us do joint training sessions and joint missions? Tsunade raises an intriguing question, and before either team can respond, Tsunade and Naruto hear a very familiar voice say, That's a very good question, Tsunade-chan. The answer to that is there is a good possibility of joint missions. Not sure about joint training sessions. What do you think, Danzo? When the 6 genin turn around, they see 2 men standing in the doorway. Since his face is etched on Hokage Mountain and he delivered a speech on their first day at the academy, the first is instantly identifiable to all of them. At the age of 25, Hiruzen Sarutobi, the god of shinobi and the third Hokage of the Leaf, hasn't changed much in the past 2 years. His goatee is still short, his hair is still spiky, and the lines under his eyes are a little longer and more defined. He is dressed casually in black today, with black pants tucked into mesh armor over his shins, a black long-sleeved kimono shirt with the sleeves tucked into mesh armor over his forearms, and white all-over mesh armor is also worn underneath the shirt. The second man, on the other hand, is unfamiliar to all of them. He has a serious, attractive face, an X-shaped scar on his chin, shaggy black hair that reaches eye level, and brown, sharp eyes that give him a hawk-like appearance. He is only marginally taller than Sarutobi at 5 feet 8 inches, and he is dressed in a black bodysuit with shin and wrist guards. His headband is tied around his head as it should be. This man is Team 9's new sensei, Danzo Shimura, the darkness of shinobi. With a slight grunt, the 25-year-old S-rank shinobi says, "I think that our teams would benefit from sparring and training together once a month, Hiruzen. As for joint missions, it is inevitable that the two teams will be placed together for certain missions, as you cannot take your team out of the village, being that you are the Hokage, of course. Rather or not they will be our teams remains to be seen." He then turns to face the 6 genin and says, "Team 9, meet me at Training Ground 9 in 5 minutes. Naruto, Tsukumo, and Izumi are left perplexed. As he says, "Okay, meet me at Training Ground 7 and we'll discuss what happens next." Hiruzen smiles at his future team. He then body flickers off, with his team following a short while later. Ground 9 for training. After 2 minutes, just 2 minutes after Danzo, the 3 genin from Team 9 arrive at Training Ground 9. The man murmurs in acceptance, "All right, now that you're here, let's start off with introductions. I want your names, your likes, your dislikes, your current skills, and your hopes for the future." "I'll start." They all nod at him, paying close attention. "My name, as you already know, is Danzo Shimura. I am a Jonin of the Leaf, formerly an Anbu captain. My likes are training, the village, and my fiancé. My dislikes are slackers, traitors to the village, and Hiruzen always being a step ahead of me. As for my current skills, well, that I'll leave a mystery for you to find out later. I'll say this though, I have a main elemental affinity for wind. As for my hopes for the future, I want the village to thrive." They all blinked at this, and Naruto thought, "Well, that's good that he's not a war hawk yet. I'm hoping that the team and I can improve him." The silver-haired boy frowned slightly. "My name is Tsukumo Hitaki, the heir to the minor Hitaki clan. My likes are training, learning new kenjutsu stances, spicy foods, and my friends. My dislikes are sweet foods, people who mess with my friends, and anyone who bad talks kenjutsu. My skills are pretty good. I can throw kunai and shuriken with absolute precision. Other than that, I'm not telling," he says, bringing him back to reality. Danzo looks at Izumi and says, "You're next, Uchiha girl." Izumi frowns at him and responds, "My name is Izumi Uchiha. I am a member of the Uchiha clan. My likes are training, learning all about genjutsu and medical jutsu, dango, flower arranging, and my new friends. My dislikes include the arrogance of most of my clan, perverts, people who say women can't be as strong as men, and those who put down genjutsu. As for my skills, I think I'll take your route, sensei, and keep those a secret for you to figure out on your. For my dreams for the future, I want to be a great kunoichi and have my name etched into history as the greatest mistress of genjutsu ever. Then I want to settle down and have a family with a man I love. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, and I'm a member of the Uzumaki clan, as well as part of the Senju family. My likes are ramen, training, gardening, my friends, and the village. My dislikes are the 3 minutes it takes for the water to boil for ramen, perverts, people who look down on others just to feel better, and those who trample on nature." The black-haired man laughs at her attitude before turning to his final pupil, saying, "You're the last one, Red." Rather than becoming irate or irritated as he might have expected, Naruto simply smiles in response. The redhead shakes his head and responds, "I don't think it's impossible. You can disbelieve all you want, but I'll prove you wrong. As for my skills, not telling." Tsukumo and Izumi laugh at the boy's final remarks, but Danzo blinks and says, "Alright, well, you've all passed the first part of your real genin test. You all kept your skills secret, which is a must for a shinobi. However, that was just the preliminary part. The main part begins now." The 25-year-old smirks and responds, "That test was to see who had what it takes to become ninja. The real genin test is administered by the Jonin and is meant to weed out the weak from the strong among all the graduates. 66% will fail their real genin test. The other 33% will end up passing and becoming actual genin. Time to find out if you three are part of the second group." Tsukumo and Izumi are taken aback by the black-haired girl's question. "What do you mean real genin test? I thought we passed the genin test in the academy." Tsukumo chooses to ask his friend, "Why don't you seem surprised by this, Naruto?" The redhead smirks and responds, "I knew about the real genin test a long time ago. Itama-san told me about the test that his uncle the second Hokage gave to Lord Third and his teammates when they became genin. I just kept it to myself because it's supposed to be a surprise for the newly graduated genin." Danzo, on the other hand, sighs, placing his right hand against his headband and his left hand at his waist. I'm going to have a talk with Itama-senpai about revealing secrets. Naruto shakes his head and responds, don't be too hard on him, Danzo-sensei. In his defense, he'd had a lot of sake before he told me. It will be your job to get these 2 scrolls from me. Within each scroll is the registration forms for active shinobi. Izumi chooses to point out the obvious, but sensei, there are only 2 scrolls. He nods his head, you're correct, Uchiha-san. This means that only 2 of you will pass. The one who does not get a scroll will be dropped from the shinobi program completely and have all their chakra sealed off forever. The black-haired man shakes his head in frustration but quickly gets back on track. Even though everyone is unaware that Naruto's shock is fake, they all react to this with shock. As he says, your mission is to get these scrolls from me before lunch. If you don't, one of you will be tied to the posts and will have to stay here for the entire lunch. However, as an added challenge, you'll have to locate me in order to even attempt to get the scrolls from me. When you find me, come at me with the intent to kill. Your time begins now. The 3 kids cover their mouths and noses and close their eyes as the man drops a smoke bomb. Danzo is gone when they open their eyes once more. You need to stop and think, why would only 2 of us pass while the 3rd fails? As far as I know, the Leaf is known for its 4-man teams, not 3-man teams. Naruto interrupts Tsukumo and Izumi as they are about to go in separate directions to find Danzo and retrieve a scroll. The 2 6-year-olds think about what he has said, and Tsukumo comes to the logical conclusion first. It's a test of teamwork. Danzo-sensei is trying to pit us against each other so that we need to work together to track him and take the scrolls from him. The redhead nods. After the 2 boys nod in agreement, the 3 new genin form a circle and collaborate to devise a strategy for defeating their new sensei. They quickly figured it out, but then again, Uzumaki and Hitaki are 2 of their class's 3 prodigies, and the man they're plotting against is smirking as he watches them from the nearby trees. It was a mistake for Hiruzen to play the balanced team. It would have been an unbeatable team if he had paired the Senju heiress with 2 of the prodigies. Oh well, I've benefited from his error. Let's see how well they perform as a team against me. Then the 3 kids split up, and Naruto does something that really surprises Danzo because it's something the second Hokage used to do all the time. The redhead lets the man know the boy is a censor by putting a finger to the ground, closing his eyes, and using all of his senses to find Danzo's chakra signature. After a few moments, Naruto opens his eyes, smiles, and gets to his feet. He then uses hand gestures to indicate to his teammates where their teacher is, and the 3 of them use body flicker to disappear. He jumps off the tree branch he was sitting on after his danger sense yells at him, and a moment later, he sees a massive fireball that has set the entire tree on fire out of the corner of his eye. When he lands in the clearing where he started, he immediately pulls out a kunai to block a number of shuriken. He then tosses the kunai in the direction of the stars, only to hear the sound of metal hitting wood. Smart used a replacement as soon as I threw the kunai. Water release. Raging waves, Sweden. Mazurapa, a red-haired student's voice calls out from the river. He turns to see Naruto spewing a lot of water out of his mouth like a waterfall as he exclaims, wind release. Vacuum wave. Futon. Shinkua. He takes a breath and starts to spin, compressing the breath into a single blade of wind that cuts through the water wave and covers a wide area. He speeds through hand seals faster than the eye can see. He has no time to relax once he stops spinning because all 3 of his students use taijutsu to attack him, putting him on the defensive. He smiles to himself as he observes how well they work together, noting that while 2 of them apply pressure, the 3rd tries to reach for his pouch to retrieve the scrolls, only to send one of the others into that one. He witnesses Izumi go through hand seals after 20 minutes of non-stop taijutsu, and then he exclaims, demonic illusion. Hellfire. Megan. Jigoku Goka no Jutsu. A moment later, he is surrounded by blazing flames. But when he realizes it's only a genjutsu, he stops the flow of chakra through his body and then releases a massive burst of chakra, shattering the illusion just in time to hear Naruto exclaim, Hokuto Hyakuretsu Dan, 100 crack snap. As he rushes the man and delivers a barrage of blows that give the impression that he has 100 fists, he observes that he is missing his wrist and ankle weights as he effortlessly blocks all of the 6-year-old's strikes. Even though most low to mid-level chunin would struggle with them, Naruto leaps back from the man after the final blow, and his teammates soon follow suit, grinning. He frowns at the smiles on their faces and says, I don't know what you're smiling about. You haven't even gotten a hold of the scrolls from me. At that moment, Tsukumo and Izumi reach into their hip pouches and retrieve the scrolls, shocking him when he returns to his pouch and discovers the scrolls have vanished. Tsukumo decides to brag a bit. You were saying Danzo-sensei? Looks like you were so busy with Naruto that you forgot it was 3 on 1 inch. He laughs. You got me there. Got to say your taijutsu is impressive Uzumaki. Now since Hitaki and Izumi got the scrolls, that means that they pass and you fail. When they throw the scrolls back to him, Izumi remarks, sorry Danzo-sensei, but if Naruto fails then so do we. After all, it was him who kept us from turning on each other, and the majority of our battle plan came from him, so either pass all of us or don't pass any of us. He anticipates that hearing this will make Naruto turn on the other two, but he is even more shocked. Tsukumo nods his head gravely as he turns to face him and asks, do you feel the same way, Hitaki? Alright then, you all pass. He sighs as he looks at the three of them standing together with confidence. This makes them all smile and give each other a group high five. Alright, calm down. Yes, you all pass, and the four of us are now officially Team Danzo as you suspected at the beginning. It was a test of teamwork, and the reason that 66% fail is because they choose to look out only for themselves and not refuse to work together. They forget their history, and the reason the Leaf is the strongest of the 5 great villages is because of teamwork as established by Lord First Hokage. As he goes on, they nod in agreement. Now you have the rest of the day off. I have to go and inform Hiruzen that you 3 passed. I want you all here tomorrow at 6 AM for team training, then after lunch we'll take a couple of D ranks. Then after that a couple more hours of training and then home for dinner. Now get out of here you brats. The three of them laugh at that and start to leave, but the black-haired man yells, Naruto, stay back for a moment. The redhead nod, looking perplexed, but he turned to his friends and said, why don't you guys go ahead? I'll meet you guys at the Red Leaf to celebrate our becoming a team. They nod and leave as he turns back to the Jonin and asks, what did you need Danzo-sensei? The man looks at him gravely and then responds, I wanted to know about your taijutsu style. I've never heard of a Hokuto style before. Where exactly did you learn it and what's its focus? I noticed that you aimed your strikes for certain areas. Naruto blinks at this, impressed by the man's ability to observe. It's actually called Hokuto Shinken. I learned it from a scroll that was in the Senju archives thanks to Mito Obasan. It's an ancient style from before the Sage of the Six Paths. It focuses on attacking 708 pressure points in the human body to destroy from within, but it can also be used to heal. When Danzo learns of this, he is taken aback and impressed by the style, which resembles the gentle fist of the Hyuga clan but does not target the Tenketsu. It sounds like a truly deadly style. Also, I've heard you have all 5 elemental affinities. I can't really help you much with most of them. I can teach you wind manipulation as well as some wind jutsu, and I can help with fire manipulation as it's my secondary element. Other than that, every other element you'll have to learn on your own. The redhead nods in agreement and asks, is there anything else Danzo-sensei? The boy turns around and flees. A short while later, Danzo himself uses body flicker to leave the training area and head to the Hokage's office. Office of the Hokage. After 15 minutes, the newly graduated Genin's Jonin sensei are all gathered around the 3rd Hokage's office, but the man isn't there, which is making some people impatient. Sorry to keep you all waiting, my test with Team 7 ran a little long. Well, let's begin. As I call each of your names, step forward and say if your team passed or failed. A few seconds later, the 25-year-old Kage arrives behind his desk via body flicker and looks at each of them apologetic. He then calls the Jonin of teams 1 through 6 and learns that only Team 4 passed, and when it comes to Team 7, he says, well, I'm happy to announce that Team 7 passed by the skin of their teeth during the initial test, which was the bell test. They thought of only themselves. While Jiraiya was tied to the stump, Tsunade Senju and Orochimaru Habi were able to obtain a bell after failing them. I administered a second test in which I gave each of them a lunchbox and instructed them not to feed Jiraiya. I then body flickered away to observe what they would do. They passed this test by giving the boy a portion of their lunches, and as a result, Team Hiruzen is now officially recognized. Except for Danzo, who knew the man wouldn't have failed the academy's 3rd prodigy or the founder's granddaughter. Everyone is shocked to learn this since Danzo has never passed a team before. Everyone is shocked when he says, Team 9 passed with flying colors. After Team 8's sensei reports that her team failed, Sarutobi chooses to ask, really Danzo? That's surprising considering your track record. Pray tell, how did they pass your test? Well, they got the gist of the test from the beginning. Uzumaki got it right off and then helped the other 2 to come to the same conclusion. After that I was surprised to find out that Uzumaki is a sensor type like Lord Second, and they found me pretty quickly. After that they kept me on my toes with good teamwork. First the Uchiha girl flushed me out of my hiding spot with a fireball. Then the Hitaki boy tried to get me with shuriken, which I blocked with a kunai and threw the kunai at him. Then Uzumaki used one of his 5 elemental natures and launched a C-rank water jutsu at me, which I countered with a B-rank wind jutsu. Then the 3 of them attacked me in unison with taijutsu and worked pretty damn well together, he says, clearing his throat. Then the Uchiha cast a genjutsu on me to make me believe that I was consumed in flames, which I broke fairly quickly, but it gave Uzumaki enough time to set up an advanced taijutsu attack. He tells Sarutobi, "Hiruzen, I have to say you were a fool to not take all the prodigies together. That would have been an unstoppable team, as it is the two prodigies I have as well as the second best female student are going to be a hell of a team. I'm actually looking forward to training the snot-nosed brats." Everyone looks on in shock and some pride at this. Blocking the boys' strikes distracted me enough that they were able to take the scrolls from me. It then moves on to the final team, Team 10, which predictably failed. The third Hokage smiles at this and says, "Glad to hear you say that, Danzo. I look forward to our first joint team spar training session to see who the better teacher is." Sarutobi dismisses everyone but Danzo after that, and as he stands there looking at his rival and former friend, he can't help but remember simpler times. He shakes his head and says to Anbu instructor, "Danzo, I want you to make sure you get to know your students, cultivate relationships with them, be an older brother figure to them, and guide them down a good path. Don't be standoffish with them and treat them as disposable tools. Remember that shinobi are people and each one has something different they fight for." As he says, "Don't worry, Hiruzen, if I'm going to take the time to teach these kids, then I'm not going to treat them like they aren't worth my time. You just worry about your team and be prepared to nurse their broken egos in a month from now if there is nothing else, Hokage-sama." The brown-haired man shakes his head and the other man body flickers away, leaving the Hokage to finish his paperwork and consider the type of training he will require of his new team beginning tomorrow. After 3 months, ground 9 for training. 3 months have passed since the actual genin tests and team placements. Teams 7 and 9 have both continued to develop as shinobi during those 3 months. Team 9 has been learning a lot from Danzo every morning, with the exception of Saturdays and Sundays. They meet at training ground 9 for morning training. They begin with push-ups, sit-ups, jumping jacks, squats, chin-ups, and laps around the training grounds before engaging in a group taijutsu spar. They then take an hour-long break before continuing to hone their skills. They start with taijutsu, fixing any errors from their previous spar, and then proceed to the next set of kata in their respective styles. Since Izumi had never even touched a sword, it was initially difficult for her to transition from taijutsu to kenjutsu. Danzo advised her to ask her uncle Kagami for assistance in finding a kenjutsu style that would work for her. She arrived the following day with dual kodachi and kodachi nito ryu, an ancient kenjutsu style, double kodachi style. Since then, as her teammates have been becoming more skilled with their own distinct styles, she has been learning how to use it effectively. Ninjutsu training comes after kenjutsu. According to Danzo, one must have a solid understanding of the element in order to use elemental ninjutsu correctly. In keeping with that, he has been instructing them in the initial stages of elemental manipulation. Each is unique. Naruto must use wind chakra to cut a leaf in half. Izumi must burn a leaf from the center by transforming her chakra into pure heat, and Tsukumo must use electricity to cause the leaf to crumple between his hands. Izumi used her fire chakra to burn half of her leaf from the center. Tsukumo used his lightning chakra to crumple 3/4 of his leaf, and Naruto used his wind chakra to cut 3/4 of the leaf. All three of them made fairly good progress. They now have 3 C-rank elemental jutsu each, in addition to the additional jutsu he taught them for each of their elements. Naturally, genjutsu comes after ninjutsu, and Izumi is particularly good at it now that she has her Sharingan. Danzo asked the members of his former Anbu team to attack the girl on her way home and make their attempts to kill her as realistic as possible after deciding it was time for her to activate her family's bloodline at the end of the first month of their training. Even though Izumi chooses not to learn any new genjutsu with her bloodline, the ruse worked, and that night she activated the Sharingan. Since then, her genjutsu skills have improved. In contrast, Tsukumo and Naruto have only been able to acquire a few minor genjutsu, proving that they will never be true genjutsu types. They take on D-rank tasks, which Naruto himself describes as meaningless tasks that the civilians are too damn lazy to do themselves. These include painting fences, weeding gardens, walking dogs, and worst of all, capturing the Fire Lady's cat, Sora. Genjutsu training always ends with lunch. The redhead insists that Sora must be the father or grandfather of Tora the demon cat from his original time, and they have already completed that mission 5 times. Tsukumo frequently remarks that cats like that are the reason he prefers dogs, and Sora, like the cat mentioned earlier, despises both his and Tsukumo's guts and always seems to calm down when Izumi holds them. They return to the training grounds after Evil D ranks and train for 2 more hours, concentrating mostly on chakra control and teamwork. They go home for dinner and rest after the 2 hours are up so they can resume the process the following day. Each of them spends time unwinding and working on personal projects at home on their days off. Tsukumo spends time with his father learning the duties of being the next head of the Hitaki clan and caring for the puppies of the family's dog summons. while Izumi spends her time continuing to learn her kenjutsu so that she can catch up to her teammates in that area. During his free time, Naruto continues studying Fuinjutsu under Mito's watchful eye. He recently received good news from the older redhead. He is now regarded as a level 2 seal master in Fuinjutsu, meaning he is just 8 levels away from becoming a level 10 seal master. She informed him that becoming an Uzumaki seal master requires about 18 levels, which put an end to his excitement at the announcement. However, she stated that she has no doubt that he will be able to enhance it when the time comes and that she will give him her brother-in-law's notes on a unique Jikukan ninjutsu that the man developed once he reaches level 10. In addition, Teams 7 and 9 have participated in 2 training, sparring sessions over the past 3 months to assess their abilities and the effectiveness of their teachers. Regretfully, Team 7 has lost both spars, primarily due to Team 9's superior teamwork, as they function as a cohesive unit, whereas Team 7's 3 members, particularly Jiraiya and Orochimaru, spend half of their time fighting each other. Tsunade makes an attempt to mediate disputes between her teammates, but it soon fails, and when Jiraiya calls her flat-chested, she becomes enraged and starts beating him. But because of the training portion of the sessions, the 2 S-rank shinobi have discovered that their team's members collaborate well, particularly when Naruto is in charge. Both men noticed this right away in the first session. At first, Team 7 kept arguing and blaming each other for their defeat, but the redhead intervened, telling them that they were all to blame and that they needed to improve as a team. After that, he guided them through training, explaining to each of them where they needed to be and what they needed to improve. During the second training session, they even made the decision to change the configuration of their team. They first paired Naruto with Tsunade and Jiraiya, and the Uzumaki did not let them down in a game of capture the flag. The 2 other children defeated Orochimaru, Tsukumo, and Izumi. He was then paired with Tsukumo and Orochimaru to test the viability of the 3 prodigies working together, and it worked wonderfully together. The 3 prefects won the second game of capture the flag and worked as a cohesive unit, instantly understanding each other's thoughts. The 2 girls were then paired with Naruto, and the same thing happened. He led them to victory, and they both hung on to his every word and instruction, especially Tsunade, who they saw had a major crush on the boy. When they finally paired him with Jiraiya and Orochimaru, he was able to persuade the 2 boys to put aside their disagreements, cooperate as a team, and narrowly win another battle. After seeing this, they came to the conclusion that Naruto is unquestionably the de facto leader and the linchpin of the group of 6. The 2 teams are getting ready for their third spar in the previous 3 months today. Danzo and Hiruzen are standing aside, preparing to signal the start of the match. In different circles, both teams are huddled together, debating how to best deal with their opponents. The silver-haired boy nods in agreement, saying, "Good thinking as usual, Naruto. I have to say that I was going to suggest just that. You know me well, buddy." Naruto describes the plan to his teammates. "Okay, here's how this is going down, Tsukumo. I want you to focus on Orochimaru. You're about equal in taijutsu, but if it comes down to ninjutsu, your lightning element cancels out his wind and vice versa." He next turns to Izumi. "Izumi, you're going to take Jiraiya. His weakness is genjutsu. He sucks at it, so hit him with one that will take him out of the fight." "I'll take Tsunade-chan. I know how to neutralize her taijutsu style. Also, just like with Orochimaru and Tsukumo, I have the canceling element to her lightning. When I get the chance, I'll slap a paralyzing seal on her. Despite being part Uzumaki, she sucks at Fuinjutsu." The girl with black hair nods to this. "Understood, Naruto. I'll hit the little pervert with the perfect genjutsu for someone like him. Tsunade-chan may get mad at you for using a seal on her." Naruto laughs at this, saying, "It'll be okay. Even if she gets mad, she'll forgive me by the end of the night. After all, we're best friends." This makes his teammates shudder and think, more like because she has a freaking crush on you, moron. They then separate and prepare for the spar. Jiraiya's loud declaration, "I'm kicking Tsukumo's butt. Orochi-tem, you can have Naruto, and flat chest you can take billboard chest. Now let's go," causes Orochimaru, Naruto, and Tsukumo to shake their heads, while Tsunade and Izumi both get tick marks over their eyebrows as they both turn red with feminine rage, indicating that Team 7 is not as well prepared as they could be. However, the impatient boy rushes forward to face his self-appointed opponent before the blonde girl can take any action. Tsukumo and Naruto appear in front of Orochimaru and Tsunade, respectively, and start engaging them in taijutsu. As soon as they see this, Team 9 go into action. Tsukumo and Naruto vanish with lightning speed. When Jiraiya sees this, he moans, "Oh come on. I said I wanted Tsukumo, damn it." He then feels a tap on his shoulder and turns to see Izumi grinning sweetly at him while her Sharingan is active. This gives him a chill. He hears, "Demonic illusion. Anti-pervert jutsu." As soon as he looks at her, and then his entire world changes. He is exposed to unimaginable images and begins to scream like a little girl before fainting and muttering, "Too many dudes. Too much penis." Izumi smirks triumphantly as she gives him a good, quick kick to the balls for good measure, and then he walks away, hearing Tsunade say, "Way to go, Izumi-chan." The two 25-year-old teachers each do something different. Danzo laughs at the white-haired boy's folly, while Hiruzen puts his face in the palm of his hand and shakes his head, asking, "Why must Jiraiya-kun be such a fool?" The blonde-haired girl smiles as Naruto and Tsunade continue their taijutsu exchange because they appear to be on an equal footing. "Good to see you're keeping up with your training, Naruto-kun. But I thought that by now you'd be much better than this." The redhead smirks and shakes his head. "Oh, you want to see better, Su-chan?" This makes her blush and miss one of her strikes, which gives him the opportunity to get into his hip pouch, frightening her. But when she realizes he's just pulling out a piece of paper, her panic soon subsides. Then, to her surprise, he slaps the paper to her chest, performs a ram seal, and exclaims, "Paralysis seal activate." As soon as he finishes speaking, the paper on her chest glows with chakra and sends a tiny shock through her nervous system, locking her body in place and preventing her from moving. She gives him a glare and says, "No fair, Naruto-kun. You distracted me so you could use Fuinjutsu on me. Let me go right now." Naruto gives her a sheepish smile and says, "Sorry, Tsunade-chan, I can't do that. Not until Sakumo has finished with Orochimaru. Also, you should know that when it comes to being a ninja there is no such thing as fair, so please just stay there for a little while longer and then I'll release you." She doesn't have much time to do so, though, because when she turns to watch Orochimaru and Sakumo fight, she sees that the silver-haired boy has his tanto point to the black-haired boy's throat and says, "You have no choice, Orochimaru, you must yield." The pale-skinned boy knows he's right, so he sighs and replies, "You are correct, Sakumo-san. I yield." Sakumo smiles as he puts his blade away and assists his friend after making the ram seal once more and saying, "Paralysis seal release." Tsunade's chest seal glows once more before falling off, allowing her to move freely once more. Izumi is seen dousing Jiraiya's head with cold water to wake him up. As Hiruzen is about to address his team, a bird-masked Anbu kneels in front of him and says, "Hokage-sama, we have a problem." The brown-haired man instantly enters Hokage mode and says, "Report." The masked man immediately answers, "Our sentries have reported that there is a large group of bandits making their way towards Tanzaku town. According to the reports, they number at least 200. Also, it appears that they are being led by a missing nin from Rock." Hiruzen takes this seriously. The ninja in question is Daichi Kuritetsu, a rank Jonin level. The mayor of Tanzaku requests an immediate mission to take out the group. Before Sarutobi can reply again, Danzo says, "My team and I would be more than happy to help the people of Tanzaku town and destroy the bandits, Hokage-sama." The black-haired man nods. "Yeah, I'm sure. In fact, you could make it 2 missions a C rank for the genin of protecting Tanzaku and eliminating the bandits." The third Hokage reflects on this for a moment, smiles. "All right then, but the condition for this is that the C rank is for both teams 7 and 9 together. I think it's time my team got some experience outside the village walls as well." Danzo accepts this and continues, "All right then, teams 7 and 9. Your mission is to protect Tanzaku town from the bandit horde, and when the opportunity presents itself, eliminate every last one of them." Danzo Shimura, sensei of Team 9, your mission is to track down the rough rock shinobi Daichi Kuritetsu and send him to the next life. You all set out in 2 hours. Dismissed. All of the kids give him a round of yeses as they dash home to get ready for their very first actual mission. Their safety is in your hands, Danzo. Make sure they all come back safely and with only minor injuries, because if they die or come back seriously wounded, then I will remind you exactly why I am known as the god of shinobi. Although Danzo appears unfazed, he nods and says, "Don't worry, Hiruzen, the children will be perfectly fine. I want all them to come within even a meter of my fight with Kuritetsu. Bandits pose no real problem for shinobi, even if those shinobi are a bunch of 6-year-olds. As his old friend Body flickers off to get ready for the missions, Sarutobi gives this an empirical nod. In order to complete paperwork and get ready for Mito to come to him to complain about giving Tsunade and Naruto a C rank, the man known as the third Hokage decides to return to his office. By designating another Jonin to keep an eye on the 2 teams while Danzo is finishing his mission, I might be able to persuade her that there won't be any issues. The matriarch of the Senju clan yelling in my ear with that notorious Uzumaki temper is the last thing I need at this moment. In the hopes that nothing bad occurs, he himself Body flickers back to his office with that thought in mind. North gate of Leaf Village. After 2 hours, the 6 genin are now waiting for Danzo to arrive near the village's northern gate. The black-haired man shows up via body flicker before they have to wait long, but he is accompanied by a woman. In addition to having long, Black hair pulled back in a twin bun secured by a traditional Japanese hairpin with 2 pearls hanging off the side. The woman in question is extremely attractive. Standing 5 feet 3 inches with fringes covering her forehead protector, she wears a basic black outfit, arm guards, a gray breastplate, fishnet tights with a skirt over them, a pouch strapped to her back with bandages, and standard shinobi sandals. Her eyes are dark. This kunoichi, Kaharu Utatane, is well known to Naruto, Tsunade, and even Izumi because she is a student of Tobirama Senju, a female teammate of Hiruzen Sarutobi, and a friend of Kagami Uchiha. The woman gives Naruto a small smile and asks, "Kaharu-san, what are you doing here? What have I told you about calling me Naruto-kun? As for why I'm here, Hiruzen has decided that 6 fresh genin cannot be left to their own devices on a C rank, so he has assigned me to watch over you all as well as help to continue your training while guarding Tanzaku Town," the woman replies. When they learn that the formidable Kunoichi will be their leader and instructor for their C-rank mission, Tsunade and Izumi grin, while Jiraiya, Orochimaru, and Sakumo moan. In contrast, Naruto simply chuckles and says, Hi Kaharu Oni-san, Hiruzen ni got an earful from Mito Obasan about the mission, didn't he? So he decided to add you on as our babysitter? Kaharu and Danzo both laugh as the man responds, You got it one. Naruto. Still, even if Mito-sama hadn't badgered Hiruzen, he still would have assigned another Jonin to this mission as a precaution. Everyone nods in agreement, realizing that even though they are highly skilled, they are still only 6 years old to 7 in the cases of Tsunade and Izumi. Okay teams, you know what your mission is. You 6 and Kaharu are to guard Tanzaku Town from bandits, and if the opportunity presents itself you are to eradicate every last one of them. Follow Kaharu's orders as if they were mine or Hiruzen's until I return from my own special mission. Is that understood? The S-rank ninja asks, getting a nod from each of the 6. Okay, then let's move out. Tanzaku Town is 6 hours tree hopping from here. With Danzo at the front, Naruto and Izumi in the middle, and Sakumo at the back, the 8-person group bolts out of the gates, leaps into the trees, and begins their journey to Tanzaku Town. Kaharu and Team 7, the elder Kunoichi in the front, Tsunade and Orochimaru in the middle, and Jiraiya in the back all have the same arrangement. After 6 hours town gates of Tanzaku, the 7-person group finally arrives at the gates of Tanzaku Town's high walls after 6 hours of almost non-stop travel. The reason they are only 7 now is that Danzo broke away from them an hour ago and set out to begin his mission of eliminating Kurotetsu. As the guard on the left says, "State your names and business." Kaharu glares at the terrified man. "We are the Leaf Shinobi that were requested to help with the bandit problem." The 2 men finally notice the symbol on their forehead protectors and relax. The 7 Leaf Shinobis startle the guards when they land in front of the gates, and they immediately point their spears at them. The black-haired woman snorts at this, saying, "These little kids, as you put it, are highly trained killers. Bandits will pose no problem at all for them. If it makes you feel any better, I'm a Jonin-level Kunoichi and was trained personally by the 2nd Hokage." The man on the right sighs with relief. "Thank Kami, you're finally here. I hope I don't offend when I say this, but we were expecting much older shinobi much like yourself, not a bunch of little kids." This makes the 2 men considerably happier once more. The person on the left says, "That's great, head on in. The mayor is awaiting you." As they all enter the town, the woman nods and gestures for the genin to follow her. When they eventually arrive at the mayor's house and meet him, he informs them that the bandits always launch attacks during the night and that their militia lacks the necessary skills to handle so many because they are merely local men with rudimentary training from the Fire Lord's samurai. Kaharu raises her head to say, "Don't worry sir, me and my genin will protect the town from the bandits. I have a comrade who is at this very moment dealing with the problem of their shinobi leader, and once he is dealt with I have the feeling that these bandits will become much less controlled and coordinated." He sighs with relief as the Kunoichi leads the 6 genin back out of his house and into the town. When they are far enough away, she turns to the 2 teams and says, "Alright, here's how things are going to go. You are going to be split into 3 groups of 2, and each group is going to take a gate." They nod in agreement as she goes on, "I'll take the northern gate myself, but I'll be sending a shadow clone to check on each of you every hour. Now go." The children follow instructions, splitting up into their pairs and then running to their posts to observe and bide their time until the bandits attack. When Tsunade and Naruto arrive at their gate, they inform the guards that they are Leaf Genin, which causes them to relax a little. The 2 wall guards then approach the top of the wall and sit down, keeping an eye out for any movement in order to maintain their energy and chakra levels. They choose to eat some rations while they wait. Say, "Naruto-kun, what do you think it would be like to have a bloodline?" the blonde asks her friend as they wait for 2 hours later. "Why do you ask that, Tsunade-chan? It's a bit odd of a question to ask when we're on our first real mission," the redhead asks, cocking his head to the side. I've always wondered what it would be like. I was disappointed when I didn't get Hashirama Gigi's bloodline, and the fact that my brother might develop it kind of gets to me. Also, you have a teammate with a bloodline, and I'm sure it makes her slightly better than she would be without it. I believe that Lord One Street's would release bloodline was incredible because the man himself was incredible. Because he put in thousands of hours of training into mastering his bloodline, it became the backbone of his ninjutsu, but he didn't let that be all he was good at. He strived for perfection in other areas like taijutsu, bukajutsu, medical ninjutsu, and even genjutsu. Just like with any skill, the strength of it relies on the human being wielding it. You sound as if you speak from experience, Naruto-kun. The redhead laughs as he strokes his forehead. Well, I sorta do. I'm going to tell you something that no one knows, and I want you to promise me you won't tell anyone until I'm ready to reveal it to the world on my own. She responds by nodding. Of course, you're my best friend, so any secret you tell me stays with me till I die. He beams at her words. Thank you, Tsunade-chan. I know about bloodlines because I have 3 of them. I discovered it after our elemental affinity tests in the academy last year. I'm able to combine my fire element with my earth and water elements to create lava and boiling mist. Also, I can turn my chakra into magnetic force. Of course, I haven't really been able to train with them much because I have no idea where to start, so they're pretty weak at the moment. When Tsunade hears that he has 3 bloodlines, 2 of which are lava release and magnet release, if she is hearing correctly, her eyes enlarge. You have 3 bloodlines. How? Did your parents have bloodlines you didn't mention? What can you do with them? She asks him quickly as she gapes at him like a fish. He laughs at her interest and places his hands on her shoulders, saying, Calm down, Tsunade-chan, take a deep breath and relax a little and I'll answer you questions. The blonde then does just that, taking a deep breath and regaining her composure. He waves to her and continues, Now in order, yes, I have 3 bloodlines. I don't know how. I think it might be due to my 5 main affinities. As far as I know, neither of my parents had any kind of bloodline other than the Uzumaki longevity and skill in Fuinjutsu. As for what I can do with them, not very much. In fact, the only one I can currently use is the magnet release, and that's only to magnetize my kunai so I can call them back to my hand as long as they're within 30 feet of me. She is completely taken aback and responds, That's so cool. It sounds handy to keep from losing your kunai or to surprise an enemy by ripping it from his hand, throwing him off balance long enough to land a really good strike on him. He nods in agreement, but catches a glimpse of movement out of the corner of his eye and turns to see a sizable gang of bandits emerging from the forest. He quickly counts them and determines that there are roughly 30 of them. Looks like we're on. Are you ready for this, Tsunade-chan? He asks Tsunade, who nods in response. Yes, but do you think we can handle a group that large by ourselves? Maybe we should send up a flare of chakra to signal for backup. The redhead shakes his head and says, No time for that. But if it makes you feel better, I'll send a clone to tell Kaharune the situation. She nods, and he creates a cross-shaped seal that reads, Shadow Clone Jutsu. An exact duplicate of him appears in a puff of smoke, salutes, and leaves to carry out the task for which it was designed. We have the element of surprise here. They're expecting to meet the same old militiamen. They don't expect there to be shinobi. They turn back to face the group that is approaching, who haven't seen the 2 young shinobi yet. The redhead has a brilliant idea. I say we toss a couple of kunai with exploding tags right in the middle of them, then unleash some jutsu. The Senju heiress agrees with this plan, so they each remove a few kunai, wrap Naruto-made explosive tags around the handles, and then throw them at the bandits. One of the bandits near the back hears a sizzling noise and asks, Hey, what's the sizzling noise? Anyone else hear it? Another near the front agrees, Yeah, what the hell is it? But they get their answer because a moment later there's a big boom and they're sent scattering as a quarter of their number is killed in the explosion. Naruto calls out, Fire Release, Fire Dragon Flame Bullet, Kaden, Karyu Enden, as the 2 genin dash through hand seals. He then releases flaming red flames from his mouth in the shape of a dragon, which splits into 3 smaller dragons and attacks from the left, right, and center. He manages to turn another 10 bandits to ash, increasing the death toll to 17. Lightning Release, False Darkness Spear, Raiden, Jian Yari, is Tsunade's only B-rank jutsu. She then releases a spear of lightning from her mouth, which splits into multiple spears and strikes multiple bandits, killing them, increasing their kill total to 22. When one of the bandits yells, the town-hired shinobi, Let's get out of here. The boss needs to hear about this. Naruto realizes he cannot allow them to escape, so he body flickers away, landing right in their path back into the forest. With more than half of their number dead, the remaining bandits decide it would be wise to flee. What's this? They send children to fight their battles. What kind of cowards must they be to cower behind little brats like this? Tell me, little brat, are you ready to die? You should have stayed up on the wall? The men stop and start laughing when they realize that one of their attackers is only a young child, the largest one, who is 7 feet tall, then advances. The redhead just places his right hand on the handle of his katana and assumes a sword-drawing stance without replying. The big man becomes enraged at this and yells, "All right then, little shit, just die. Get him, boys." The group rushes the 6-year-old, but he doesn't panic and just clicks his sword out of its sheath while saying, "Hidden Mitsurugi Ryu. Ryukansen. Sumuji. Dragon coiling flash. Whirl." As he moves forward, he draws his sword and spins faster than the bandits can react, passing through them like a drill. When he stops behind them, he wipes the blood off his sword and puts it back in place, and as soon as it clicks back in place, the other 18 bandits all splatter blood. "It's okay, Tsunade-chan. Just breathe slowly. The first time is always the hardest," Naruto says as he body flickers back to a vomiting Tsunade and rubs her back. After the blonde has finished discarding her cookies from her first kills, she takes a sip from the provided water canteen, rinses her mouth, spits out the water, and then takes another sip and swallows. "Why aren't you throwing up right alongside me?" she asks the redhead after finishing, pointing out that she killed more people than she did and even used your katana to kill the last of them. "I've seen death. I found my parents' dead bodies, and the first time I saw them I threw up for 10 minutes, then I cried for 6 hours straight, and then I had to bury them, which took all night. It kind of desensitized me from death." A moment later, Kaharu appears in a body flicker, looking around and observing all the dead bandits. She nods her head and says, "Looks like you two took care of this group. Good job." The two give her a happy smile before Naruto asks, "This group? Are you saying there were more?" The black-haired woman nods her head. "Yes, each of the gates were attacked, including mine, but the group that attacked my gate was only 10, while 15 attacked the west and 20 attacked the western gate." Tsunade is somewhat taken aback by this, but Naruto adopts a contemplative stance and asks, "What was the point? I could understand attacking all the other gates with small groups as distractions while the biggest chunk of the horde attacks one to break through and get into the town, but the group here was 30 strong and all of them are dead. If you add up the numbers, then there were only 55 of the suspected 200 bandits, so why waste 55 lives?" The two women watch as he finally realizes the situation. The two nod as they all body flicker away to meet with the other 4 members of their group. Kaharu smiles at his deduction, saying, "That was my thought. Naruto, come on, let's regroup with the others and plan our next move." As they reach the hotel that Kaharu arranged for them to stay at during the mission, they discover their 4 teammates as well as an unexpected visitor, whom the red-haired man asks, "Danzo-sensei, what are you doing here?" The black-haired man is standing there with Orochimaru, Tsukumo, Izumi, and Jiraiya, all of whom appear to be in good condition. "I encountered a bit of a problem when I went to find my target. I found him, right in the middle of the bandit camp, surrounded by over 100 armed men. Also, it seems Kuritetsu got himself some backup in the form of 2 more missing nin, both of them Chunin level and at least C rank in skill. Now I could handle the 3 of them on my own, but I can't handle 3 missing nin plus over 100 bandits, hence why I've come here," the man says after glancing at his red-haired pupil. They all understand him, and he returned to join them so they could strike together and finish both missions simultaneously. They then decide on an attack strategy while seated around a table in the hotel's cafeteria. They decide that he and Kaharu will deal with the 3 missing nin while the 6 of them use shuriken, kunai, ninja wire, nin and genjutsu, and even smoke screens if they can, to eliminate the bandits. They will then encircle the camp from all 4 sides and launch an initial 4-way jutsu attack. They go to the 2 rooms Kaharu rented for them, one for the boys and one for the girls, after Danzo advises them to take a short nap before setting out early in the morning to carry out their plan. Once inside their rooms, each gender engages in different activities. Kaharu just giggling behind her hand, finding it kind of cute, and wondering if the two will ever get together. Izumi brings up Tsunade's obvious crush on her red-haired teammate, something the 7-year-old denies completely while blushing. The girls talk all night long while Naruto and Danzo merely watch and shake their heads. The boys spend the majority of the night playing cards and getting into little fistfights, all of which are started by Jiraiya. Eastern gate of Tanzaku town. Dawn the following day. Our 2 teams are doing last-minute inventory checks outside the town's eastern gate as the sun rises. After making sure they have everything they need, they swiftly and covertly make their way through the trees to the bandit camp. After about an hour of travel, they arrive at the camp's outer perimeter and divide into 4 groups of 2. Tsukumo and Tsunade take the north, Jiraiya and Izumi take the east, Orochimaru and Naruto take the west, and Kaharu and Danzo take the south. Danzo gives the order to attack by making a crowing noise once they are all positioned around the sleeping camp. While Izumi runs through hand seals and yells, Fire Release. Great Fireball Jutsu. Kaiten. Gokaku no Jutsu. As she unleashes a massive ball of orange flames upon the tents that Jiraiya hit, his exploding tags explode, killing every bandit in the tent closest to the kunai. Jiraiya tosses out a number of kunai with exploding tags, which lodge into a group of tents. 20 more men are killed by Izumi's fireball. Orochimaru and Naruto decide to attack together, and both of them go through hand seals as Orochimaru yells, "Wind Release, Great Breakthrough." Futon. Daitappa, and simultaneously releases a huge gust of wind from his mouth. The red-headed person yells, "Fire Release. Fireball Jutsu," as he unleashes a fireball that is smaller than Izumi's, but it is made even hotter and larger than hers by Orochimaru's wind. It turns into a wave of red flames that consumes every tent in its path, causing all the men inside them to scream in agony as they are reduced to ash. When the screams of their allies awaken those on their side, Tsukumo and Tsunade decide to launch their attack. The two genin launch a barrage of shuriken and kunai at the bandits on the north side from various angles as soon as they emerge from their tents with their weapons drawn, killing roughly 30 of them. Kaharu and Danzo perform similar actions, but Danzo kills more than a dozen bandits at once by using his wind release. Vacuum Serial Waves, Futon. Shinku Renpa, technique, which involves moving his head in different directions and cutting through them with multiple wind blades at different angles. Kaharu kills roughly as many bandits as Danzo does by combining genjutsu with some earth release jutsu. However, 3 missing nin from Rock Village soon capture their interest, leading them as a man who is roughly 6 feet 3 inches and weighs a solid 250 pounds of muscle. He has a full beard, round nose, and cropped brown hair. He is dressed entirely in brown and has dark armor covering his shoulders, back, and chest. Daichi Kurotetsu is this man. The two Chunin are female twins with blue hair, though the one on the right has a bob cut and the one on the left has a Longheim-style cut. They are both 5 feet 2 inches tall, have green eyes, and have large busts. The Storm Twins, Nezumi and Rizumi, are well known for possessing the uncommon storm release, Rantan bloodline, despite not being masters of it. When Danzo says, well, it appears that the leaf has sent the darkness of shinobi here to take my head. I'm honored. However, I'm curious as to how you'll fare when you see your teammates being killed one by my men. Shimura. Daichi notices that Danzo smirks. "I think you've taken too many hits to the head." Kurotetsu, look around you. The camp is half destroyed, your men are in disarray, and even now my students are laying down smoke bombs and taking out the riffraff that remain. The only real threats here are you and those 2 bitches, and you 3 have to deal with me and Kaharu, and I can assure you that none of you will live past today. The black-haired man snorts in response. The twins aren't as quick, and even though they manage to avoid the brunt of the spheres, they're each nicked in the sides, Nezumi on the right and Rizumi on the left, and they don't get their bearings back because Kaharu is instantly upon them using taijutsu to keep them off balance. Daichi responds quickly, going through hand seals and slamming his hands on the ground as he calls out, "Earth Release. Earth-style Wall." Doten. Doryuheki, as a large wall of thick rock springs up from the ground 20 feet into the air to protect him. His armor absorbs most of the impact, allowing the rock nin to hop up to the top of his wall just in time to block Danzo's Tanto with a kunai and start engaging him in kenjutsu. When he reaches the top of his wall and looks to see where his opponent was, he is no longer there. He looks around for the S-rank shinobi, but he fails to look behind him and takes a kick to the back of the head, sending him flying off his wall and into the ground hard. After Kaharu is forced to cover her face with a smoke bomb, Nezumi and Rizumi finally manage to get some space from her. They both perform hand seals and join hands while chanting, "Storm Release. Laser Circus. Rantan. Reiza Sakasu." As a halo of energy surrounds their joined hands, several energy beams emerge from it, all of them moving in Kaharu's direction. The dark-haired woman is able to substitute a log to deflect the attack, and she combines that with body flicker to emerge behind the twins and stab Rizumi in the throat with a kunai while Nezumi escapes. The surviving twin becomes enraged upon witnessing her sister fall to the ground lifeless, saying, "You bitch. My sister was killed by you. My other half. You leaf whore, I'll ruin you for it." However, after the last word leaves her mouth, she's suddenly brought to her knees by an intense killer intent that comes from Kaharu. The leaf Kunoichi walks towards the remaining twin slowly as she goes through hand seals. "You call me a whore? If a man is stronger than you and your sister, would you still sleep with him for protection? I'll send you to join your sister and show you what this whore is capable of." When she gets to the kneeling woman, she completes her hand seals and says, "Fire Release. Flamethrower Jutsu. Kaiten. Kanho Shiki." As she exhales a stream of flames at her, the girl screams for help and is burned alive. When the woman is reduced to ash, she removes 2 scrolls, seals the ashes in one and the other twin's body in the other. She then looks to see that Danzo is almost finished with Kurotetsu, the man covered in deep burns, cuts, and even drops of water, and has lost his armor. "Look alive, boys. We can't let these shinobi get the best of us," says the most healthy of the bandits, who have been reduced to a group of 20 and have gathered in the middle of the destroyed camp, forming a tight circle as they all scan the area warily for the demons that have killed their fellows. The men all grudgingly agree at this point. "As soon as you see one of them attack, don't stop until they're dead." Jiraiya laughs. "Look at how scared they are," as the 6 genin regroup in the trees and observe the remaining bandits cowering together. A group of adults trembling because they are afraid of children, hee. Tsunade slaps him across the head for his remark, saying, "Don't go getting cocky, moron. Guess what they say about the difference between shinobi and civilians is true. Chakra, shuriken, and kunai are running low." The white-haired boy glares at the blonde while rubbing the back of his head, saying, "Most of us only have enough chakra for one last big jutsu or a couple small ones." Naruto chooses to interrupt the tirade he anticipates, saying, "Jiraiya, she's right. I'm still optimistic, and I believe that I'm the only one of us with enough chakra left to perform multiple large jutsu. Here's my theory. Jiraiya, Tsunade, and Orochimaru will use a combination attack to eliminate the left side after they are captured. After Izumi used a Sharingan-enhanced genjutsu on them, they all nod in agreement with his plan and split up to carry it out. Tsukumo and I will use kenjutsu to take out the right center." Izumi shows up in front of the bandits, who are taken aback by the 6-year-old, but the leader chuckles and says, "It's just a little girl." "Haha, little lady, are you lost?" His fellows laugh as they gaze at the now irate girl, but they are astounded to see her eyes bleed red with 2 tones in each eye and go through hand seals. Sharingan Genjutsu. Demonic illusion. Shackling stakes. He declares. They scream as they feel spikes being driven through their bodies, and as soon as they make eye contact, they are thrust into a world of bloody ground and red skies. Megan. Kasagui no Jutsu. The others show up and start killing them as soon as they are caught in the illusion. Tsukumo and Naruto use their swords to stab them in the heart or remove their heads, while Tsunade, Jiraiya, and Orochimaru each slit their throats with 2 kunai. After a few minutes, all of the remaining bandits are dead, just in time for them to turn to face Danzo's battle and see the man attach an exploding tag to his opponent's back and blow him up. Then they watch as he seals the man's head into a scroll, and they all approach him to get the order to pull out. Well, in camps like this, there's usually a cache of weapons or gold or even some jutsu, he sighs as he surveys the group. The 6 of them respond in the affirmative. "Yes, sir. I want you all to look around and go through the still standing tents." When they reunite 10 minutes later, they have gathered a number of weapons, 2 chests of gold, and 1 chest of gems. Danzo has a chest next to him, explaining, "Kurotetsu had this in his tent. It's full of jutsu scrolls that he probably stole from shinobi that he killed." He then seals all the chests into a storage scroll. "Okay, let's return to Tanzaku town and get cleaned up and have breakfast," he says with a smile when Kurotetsu and the bandits are dead. "Kaharu and I will let the mayor know." They all exhale with relief as the group returns to town. After that, we'll head back to the Leaf for the mission pay. When they arrive, they ignore the employees who can only stare at all the blood on their bodies and proceed directly to their rooms, where they take turns taking a shower and changing into clean clothes that are identical to what they just removed. Following their reunion in the lobby, they all go out to find a good restaurant for some food, which they locate close to the castle in the middle of town. The children then return to the hotel to prepare their belongings for departure, while the Jonin go to the mayor's house and tell him that the mission was successful. The mayor then kneels on the ground and bows to them, saying, "Thank you so much. My citizens no longer need to be afraid of those bandits or their shinobi leaders, which gives me peace of mind." They nod to him and return to the hotel, where their team is waiting outside. "Please send my regards to your Hokage. Are you in a rush to get home to your families and own beds?" Danzo laughs at that. "You are aware that you will have a few days off from missions after we return home, but not from training, correct?" Kaharu giggles. "All right then, let's head back to the Leaf and report to Hiruzen." They all simply smile at him without showing any emotion, and then they all dash to the gate they entered through, waving goodbye to the guards before picking up their pace, hopping up into the trees, and making a beeline for home. Gate of Leaf Village. After 6 hours, the 2 teams finally arrive at the Leaf Village gates after 6 hours of fast driving, and they are relieved to be home. The gate guards greet them as soon as they enter, saying, "Welcome back, Danzo-san. How was the mission?" The genin did better than expected, and it was all right. The black-haired man grunts out a response, "We're going to the Hokage's office to give him our report." They nod in agreement and let them all pass on their way to the Hokage Tower. They wave to everyone who greets them as they pass through the village, especially Tsunade, who is the Senju clan heiress after her father. After a short walk, they arrive at the office, where the secretary greets Team 7 with a kind smile. Hiruzen's face beams as they see that everyone is back and unharmed. They approach his desk, and Danzo addresses the group, saying, "Hokage-sama, Teams 7 and 9 reporting back from successful C and A rank missions." Sarutobi assumes the role of leader at this point, saying, "Glad to have you back teams, and in one piece, now report on the missions." They then go into a thorough report about how they dealt with the bandits, which makes him smile proudly at the 6 kids. The black-haired man concludes the report by saying, "Then we headed back here and arrived just a few minutes ago." Danzo describes how he was a little surprised when he went to complete his mission and discovered that Kurotetsu had gotten backup in the form of 2 more shinobi, but he kind of expected it because missing nin rarely travel alone unless they are S rank. That concludes the report. Hokage-sama. The man with brown hair nods and says, "Very good, you've all done exceptionally well. Teams 7 and 9 will receive C rank mission compensation and be noted in your records as having completed 1 C rank mission. Danzo, you'll get both the bounty for Kurotetsu and a rank pay. Kaharu, thank you for keeping an eye on and supporting the teams," he says as he turns to face Kaharu. The third smiles kindly at his female teammate, saying, "Very well, it's your choice, Kaharu-chan." All of the kids are shocked by this. You shall receive B rank pay as well as the bounties for the Storm Twins. She shakes her head at that, saying, "I don't need the bounties, so just split it up and add it to the kids' pay. Hiruzen, you've been fired, and you can pick up your paycheck at the mission office down the hall." After hearing that, they all leave the office and go down the hall to the mission office to pick up their pay. The genin receive 60,000 ryo for their mission, which is divided 6 ways, giving them 10,000 ryo each. They are shocked when Danzo receives 300,000 ryo for his A rank mission and then an additional 500,000 from the bounty for Kurotetsu, giving him 800,000 ryo. After leaving the mission office and the Hokage Tower completely, Danzo turns to his team and says, "Okay Team 9, I'll see you all bright and early tomorrow morning for training." The bounties for the Storm Twins also turn out to be 60,000 each, which adds up to 120,000 altogether, and when divided 6 ways, each of them receives an additional 20,000 ryo. Have a great remainder of today and tonight. You all did a fantastic job today, and I'm proud of you. I'll see you tomorrow. As the group of kids decide to go to the barbecue place and celebrate their first C rank, the man body flickers away. All of Team 9 smile proudly at their teacher's words, and Team 7 smile amusedly. After eating their fill and talking about future missions, they head back to the Senju compound, where Naruto and Tsunade are immediately surrounded by Amaya and Mito, who check them over for wounds and make a fuss while Itama just stands to the side and laughs while holding a giggling Nawaki. Naruto escapes the overly concerned women and heads up to his room while giving Itama a look that shouts, "Traitor." Ground 9 for training. After a year, the 7-year-old members of Team 9 are standing in their training grounds, staring at a creature that is standing next to their sensei. Since their first C rank, they have advanced through 5 more C ranks and even 2 B ranks with Danzo, all because of the increased training the man has given them since that first mission. As of right now, Sakumo and Azumi's skills are at least mid-chunin level, while Naruto's is at a high chunin to low jonin level and he is now a level 5 seal master today. However, they are learning a new skill that Danzo hadn't taught them. A hawk with brown feathers, a long, sharp beak, and sharp golden eyes stands next to the black-haired man. The hawk is almost as tall as the man, but what's most intriguing about it is that it can talk. "So these are your students, Danzo-chan?" Its tone is feminine, letting them know it's a female hawk. The black-haired man sighs at her name for him. "Yes, they are." Takahiri at this. She bobs her head. "It's okay, I wanted to show the kids the summoning jutsu, Kachiyose no Jutsu. And what it does. I apologize for summoning for something other than battle. You've been sulking about these students for the past year, and many of us have been eager to meet them. Meeting you kids has been enjoyable. As you've seen, the summoning jutsu summons forth a creature which you have a contract with for the price of a little blood," Danzo says, shaking his head at her personality as she puffs away, returning to the hawk's eyrie in her nest. Depending on the type, the summons can be used for a variety of purposes. For instance, my hawks can be used for transportation, flying me to places I couldn't reach on my own, or for scouting or tracking because their eyesight is incredible. They all listen intently as he says, and they can be used for battle as they do have sharp talons and beaks. Plus most of them use wind release jutsu as well as other techniques that are completely unique to the Hawk clan. "How exactly do we gain summons?" Izumi asks, raising her hand, and the black-haired man nods. Danzo grinned at her drive before turning serious once more. The only way to do that is to cut your hand and perform the hand seals I showed you earlier and slam your hand on the ground and you'll be reverse summoned to the home of the summons that best matches your personality. I know my clan has at least 2 summon clans, but I don't want to rely on my family's summons. I want my own unique summons. I'm standing here with you right now, which is the ideal time to do this. With a nod, the girl with the black hair turns to face her teammates and asks, "Are you all prepared to receive summons?" Tsukumo, however, shakes his head and says, "I'm fine. My family has a contract with summoned dogs, and it's customary that the clan head and heir be their main summoners, so I've already signed the contract," Danzo says, nodding in agreement. Izumi, a little taken aback and disappointed, turns to her teammate and asks, "How about you, Naruto?" "I'm with you, Izumi," the redhead says with a smile. "Let's see what happens when we roll the dice." She returns his smile, and the two of them use kunai to nick their thumbs before running through the 5 hand seals required. They slam their hands on the ground and simultaneously yell, "Summoning Jutsu." Tsukumo asks their sensei anxiously, "Are you sure they're going to be okay, Danzo-sensei?" As the seal formula for the summoning spreads out along the ground beneath their hands and, a moment later, they both disappear in puffs of smoke, the man gives him a nod and responds, "Yes. The boss summons test will be the worst thing they have to deal with. They will be returned with the contracts signed and in hand if they pass. If they don't, they will be returned empty-handed. You and I will keep training until they return." Mountain Claw, Kuroyama. When Naruto reappears in the middle of a forested mountain, he looks around and notices trees that are not native to the land of fire. He channels chakra to his ears and listens for any movement, and soon he hears footsteps in the brush. He closes his eyes and kneels on the ground. Sending out his senses to find the nearest chakra source, he finds several mid-sized sources all around him, but the strangest thing about them is that the chakra seems wild, untamed, almost animal-like. At that point, he realizes that it might be the summons. He has arrived. "I know you're out there," he says, turning to his left. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki, and I've come to speak to your leader about entering into a summoning contract with your clan." He waits a few minutes for a response, and when none comes, he gets ready to speak again. However, he hears a noise to his right and turns in time to see a larger than average wolf emerge from the brush. The wolf has large, sharp teeth, shaggy gray fur, stands about 4 feet 6 inches at the shoulders, and appears to weigh about 100 pounds. The wolf approaches him, eyeing him like a piece of meat, which it likely is because it appears capable of removing his face with a single paw swipe. 5 feet from him, the wolf opens its mouth and says in a male voice, "Lil Ninjin, why do you feel you are deserving of our alpha's attention?" The redhead shakes his head and says, "What makes you think you are worthy of we, the Dire Wolf clan?" "Nothing makes me think I'm worthy of your clan. I can only go before your alpha and let him or her test me and determine for themselves whether or not I would make a good summoner." The Dire Wolf nods his head, "Good response, pup," as he looks straight into his eyes and finds no sign of dishonesty. Naruto nods appreciatively and complies, climbing up on his back. "Say, Wolf-san, what is your name?" he asks. "Come climb upon my back and I shall take you to the alpha." The wolf is a little taken aback by this because most people would only want to know the alpha's name. "My name is Gurikaze." They then set out to meet the alpha at the Dire Wolf's den, while Izumi is going through a similar ordeal with the Coyote Packs, where she must meet with their boss and matriarch. 2 hours later, training ground 9. For the past 2 hours, Tsukumo and Danzo have been practicing kenjutsu while waiting for their teammates to return. The silver-haired boy notices that his sensei is beginning to worry about his 2 friends, so he nicks his right thumb and gets ready to go through the hand seals for the summoning jutsu to summon a hawk and have the clan search for his students. However, before he can do so, 2 puffs of smoke appear, and the 2 members of Team 9 have large scrolls. Before examining the scrolls, Danzo and Tsukumo exhale with relief. Azumi's scroll is brownish in color and features images of slender dogs with their heads raised in the air howling, with the words "Coyote, Coyote" written in kanji on the front. Naruto's scroll is slightly larger than Azumi's. It is gray in color and features an image of a massive snarling wolf, with the words "Dire Wolves, Daya Ukami" written on it in kanji. The silver-haired boy smiles joyfully for his friends. "Congratulations to each and every one of you. Tomorrow is the start of your summons training." They decide to go find Team 7 to see what they learned today after being dismissed after a few more hours of training. As they are about to leave training ground 7, Naruto yells, "Hey guys," and Tsunade-chan. Hearing his voice, the blonde-haired girl brightens up considerably. "Naruto-kun, Izumi-chan and Tsukumo. Hello to you too. What are all of you doing?" "Not much, just coming to see what you guys learned from Sarutobi-sensei today," the silver-haired boy replies. Jiraiya smirks arrogantly and replies, "We learned about the summoning jutsu, and we all gained summon contracts. Izumi says, that's exactly what we learned as well, but instead of the shocked expressions he anticipates, he only sees the three chuckle and shake their heads. Tsunade is thrilled to hear this, saying, really? Tsukumo already had a contract, so Naruto and I had to be reverse summoned to the animals that best represented us, and we did, and we impressed the bosses and got our contracts. That is really amazing. Naruto-kun, what is your summons? The redhead laughs at his best friend but is pleased that she still has a zest for life. Mine are slugs. Well, since you were so kind as to reveal your summons first, Tsunade-chan, let's reveal by team, he says, shaking his head. The quiet black-haired boy chooses to speak first, saying, my summons are the Snake Clan who live in the Ryuchi Cave and are led by the White Snake Sage who allowed me to sign the contract as he said he saw greatness in me. Jiraiya frowns at his teammate who takes the lead but then takes his turn, saying, I got the best summons of all, the toads of Mount Myoboku. This annoying young toad named Gamabunta found me after I was reverse summoned there. What a jerk. I was shown to the great toad sage, the toad's leader, and he gave me permission to sign the agreement. Tsukumo chooses to go first after Team 9 smiles at the white-haired boy's excitement for his new summons and Tsunade says, your turns. They all nod. I have a contract to summon dogs, just like my father, Tsukumo says. They all blink at his rather boring explanation, but Izumi ignores it and continues, my summons are the coyote packs of the Sojin Prairie. It has been in my family for generations and as heir it was my duty and privilege to sign the contract and was accepted by the head dog. I was brought to their matriarch by a group of coyotes, who deemed me deserving and allowed me to sign the contract. Tsunade squeals in an unladylike manner, so cool. We both received summonses from bosses who are also girls. We'll show these boys who's boss with your coyotes and my slugs. All of the boys laugh amicably at this, and Izumi nods to her lone female friend. Naruto pauses his laughter and says, I guess that leaves me. Among them, my summons are unquestionably the most fierce. The dire wolves of Claw Mountain are my summons, being the biggest dog species on the planet. I was discovered by a small hunting party and brought to the alpha of the pack. Tsunade chuckles. Only you, Naruto-kun. Only you. Jiraiya and Orochimaru actually gape at this. He tested me and said he could sense the greatness within me and that I would be a worthy summoner, so he let me sign their contract, the first to do so actually. After regaining his composure, Jiraiya coughs into his hand and says, well then looks like the six of us all have summons now. I can't wait for a change to have them work together like we do sometimes. They all nod in agreement, and Izumi notices that it's time to head home. Sorry to cut this short but I have to get home before my parents send my cousin Kagami out to find me. Izumi says, Tsukumo, Naruto. See you tomorrow. After realizing that it is getting late, the others all make excuses and leave for their homes, leaving Naruto and Tsunade alone to walk home together. She then bolts in the direction of the Uchiha compound. The blonde chooses to mention something she's been wondering about for some time as they stroll. Say, Naruto-kun, have you recently made any headway with your bloodlines? The redhead is brought up a little short at that, but quickly falls back into step with her and responds, only mildly. Tsunade appears intrigued by this as she inquires, what about lava and boil? I've discovered how to use magnet release to break down and control certain metals. At the moment I can control iron, and I've been working on making silver magnetic by constantly applying my magnetic chakra to silver coins. Well, I've finally figured out how to breathe out the boiling mist without hurting my throat, Naruto says with a small smile. Regarding the lava, I have yet to discover the ideal fire and earth chakra balance that would allow me to properly transform solid earth into molten rock. Well, I hope that when you've finally mastered your bloodlines I'll be the first person you show them to, she says with a smile. I think once I've completed the second steps to fire and earth manipulation I'll be able to finally get it right. He responds with a kind smile, saying, of course Tsunade-chan. After all, who better to show how awesome I am than my best friend in the world? As they arrive at the Senju compound and enter, she beams at him for this, not realizing that tragic events would cause them to become even closer in the years that follow.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.